Calling Phil when you're ready.
Nope. Phil, I'm ready.
Okay, anytime you're ready.
Thank you, Phil. Okay, good evening, welcome. I'd like to call the Select Board to order on May 4th, 2021. Tonight we'll get an update on our COVID-19 response from Dr. Lopez. We will discuss liaison reports and assignments for the next year. We will open up the floor to public comment. We have an outdoor dining placeholder with no applicants. We will not need that item for this evening. We will get an update and discuss the proposed park ad hoc committee. We will take a vote on the Meadowbrook change of managers, and we will vote have a hearing on a new liquor license for Common District Meeting House and take a vote. We will get an update on the records access and procurement practices. We have minutes to approve. We'll discuss future meeting agenda topics, and then we will adjourn to executive session to discuss the items outlined on the agenda, and we will not be returning to public session. Before we get started tonight, I just wanted to say that I am grateful to be here and to be able to take part in the important business of running the town of Reading. And I wanted to take a moment and thank our previous board member in all the reorganization work that we had to do. We did not thank Vanessa Alvarado, who was a very strong advocate in many areas for 3 years and was a key part of a number of changes, the senior tax circuit credit, you know, all of the hard work we've done to get the water tower project back on track. We appreciate her hard work, and we wish her well, and I know she'll still be a strong volunteer in the community. Okay, so I guess we could turn it over to Dr. Rick Lopez. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. So in terms of COVID, you know, I think things are going well in terms of the number of cases. So our public health nurse reported today that as of today, we have 37 active cases. But the good news is that there's only been 7 new cases in the past week, and the other 30 cases are being tracked and sort of carried over as active cases. Cases are considered active until they've completed a certain time frame, at which point they drop off as resolved. So 7 new cases in the past week is actually quite low. And our test positivity rate is 1.78%, which is also very low. You know, we're currently listed as a moderate risk community, but with these numbers, I would not be surprised in the next week or two that we become a low risk community if they continue as is. We had a cluster of 10 cases at the Austin Prep football team, of which 2 of the students were Reading residents. And you know, appropriate contact tracing and quarantining was done. There was 1 case on the Reading High baseball team as well. But on the whole, things have been quieting down. In terms of vaccinations, the town has provided 1,089 vaccinations. And if I could share my screen for 1 second, our public health nurse provided these graphs, which show that for phase 1 and phase 2, how many vaccinations, first and second dose, we gave. And then the graph on the right is the cumulative number. So as of April 30th, we've given almost virtually the same amount of first and second doses in about a little over 1,000 vaccinations. And if you break this down in terms of who got these, about 68% were first responders and, people in age-appropriate groups over 75, and then the next tier and so forth. About 6% homebound, and we're continuing to do homebound vaccinations, which are really our purview to be doing, and then 15% in the affordable housing sector and 11% in Council of Aging. And then lastly, about vaccinations, I would say that if we can, this is data from the Massachusetts website, and this is for Reading, and looking at vaccination rates by various age groups. And I highlighted in yellow the two areas that I thought were most relevant, which is individuals with at least one dose and individuals that were fully vaccinated. And you can see that in the over 75 group, 93% had one dose and 86% were fully vaccinated. And these numbers are much higher than the last time I was here a couple weeks ago. Similarly, for the 65 to 74, there's very high numbers of vaccinations, and it kind of goes down from there. So, I did talk to our health director about the recent announcements by the governor that they would close down the mass vaccination sites, and would there be a role for us? And in his discussions with our emergency preparedness region 3B, he thought that probably the state was going to focus more on regions and communities that have very, very low vaccination rates, and that they would necessarily, provide towns like Reading necessarily more vaccines. And actually, as I thought about it, today I went on the CVS website and pretended I was going to get looking to get a vaccine, and it was amazing to me compared to a couple months ago. There were plenty of appointments available in Reading as well as in surrounding communities. I mean, many, many appointments. So I think we're at a point where our role in the Board of Health is less critical, because residents who want to get vaccinated can get vaccinated very easily in the pharmacies. And then lastly, I would just say that we're continuing to review with the Recreation Department, permit requests for activities, continuing to review athletic and youth activities, and making sure that they're adhering to guidelines. There's been a little bit more, because of the change going to phase 4, I think there's been a little bit more pushback around, do we really have to do this? Do we really need to have a mask, when we're at that, and so, but we're sort of remaining vigilant and staying on top of it, and, following the current state guidelines as they are posted. And I would say that's about it for the COVID update.
Great. Board members, do you have any questions? Carlo?
Thank you. Dr. Lopez, other than the cases you cited at Austin Prep, how are our schools doing?
Overall, the schools, the number of cases have been actually somewhat less. And what is striking is that, and I may have mentioned this before, the cases that do show up in school, frequently the contact tracing shows that the contact or the virus was contracted outside of the school in social events and so forth. I think we may have had a little bit of a bump on April School Vacation Week. If you remember, we were down to 20 active cases and we went up to 30 a week or two ago. And I think that was because of activities outside of school, but schools are doing well.
All right, and one last question. Would you have any apprehension if we started to meet in person as a board?
I think if we're talking about the board meeting in person, and at this point, everybody I'm sure has been or is attempting to be fully vaccinated, and meeting in a room, I think that would be pretty safe. If we're talking about having, 100 members of the public in the same room, I think we'd have to look at that. In that case, you probably need to be in a very large space with appropriate spacing and so forth. But with the vaccine available to all of you, and if you were fully vaccinated and sitting in the same room, I think that's a pretty safe environment.
Thank you. Yeah, 100 people would be extraordinary for us, but
Yeah,
that's all I have. Thanks.
sure.
Thank you. That's great news. I'm so glad that you're able to report that we are continuing to head out of this pandemic. That's great. Thank you. Oh, Anne?
Thank you, Dr. Lopez. That's useful. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens when the state of emergency is lifted, because that is when the emergency rules for remote participation are also lifted, and we'll see what, if any, rules replace them. I wonder I don't know, and we'll see what happens if there's an opportunity for some kind of hybrid situation where board members can meet, but the public can remote participate or something along those lines. We'll have to see what comes with the lifting of that emergency order. I did have a question for Dr. Lopez about generally what you've seen with respect to clusters on sports teams, not specific to the two recent cases you cited, but when there have been clusters in sports events, is this generally related to team members socializing outside of practice? Is it protocols not being followed? What general trends have we seen?
I would say the general trends have been more related to social activities outside of school, but there have been some situations where maybe appropriate guidelines weren't followed in locker rooms and so forth. But similar to Carla's question in the school situation, I think it's been more outside. Fortunately, the pool testing is being done by all the teams as a high priority and a requirement, and so we're picking these up earlier.
Thank you.
Mark?
Thanks, Karen. Rick, back just for a second on public meetings and some of those questions. With the current emergency orders that are in place, if we were to be together, I assume that would require wearing masks at this point, and that's part one. Part two is that if we do have public meetings, we have to allow public access, and numbers of people unknown, and status of vaccinations and things like that unknown, and meetings that tend to last several hours. So kind of how do we put all those pieces together?
Well, I would have to sort of look at specifically at the guidelines, but given the number of, if the entire board was fully vaccinated, given the number of board members, and Bob and Caitlin and so forth, given the numbers in an interior setting, particularly if you were set around a table that also had some distancing, I think that's fully compliant with what the current guidelines are for inside gatherings, where people are fully vaccinated and there's reasonable spacing between the seating. So in terms of the members that I see on the screen now, I don't think that would be a problem. And I'm happy to sort of circle back and kind of take a look at those guidelines and send an email in follow-up. In terms of the public, I think that is more of a problem currently. Now, we may have full Gillette Stadium watching the Patriots later this year, and so it starts to become, and particularly, as Ann said, if they lift the emergency order, it's going to be hard to say you can't have, the public in space, but we're not there yet. We're still in May. And for now, if we were to do that, it would have to be in a very large, I think I saw someone mentioned the field house. It would have to be in a large space with appropriate spacing by public members. But if we're just talking about the board, I don't think that's an issue. And I don't think you'd have to wear a mask. For that.
So can I suggest that if we do have public meetings, they do have to have public access. So it's not that.
So you can't split it like that. No.
I don't believe so. So I think it would be worth, if you wouldn't mind following up, as you suggested.
I will do that.
Thinking this through a little bit as to how we can accomplish it and things like that. I think that'd
I
be
will
helpful.
follow up with the board and with our interim health director and try to get some more specifics for you at the next update.
Thank you.
Dr. Lopez, do you happen to know is the school committee actually meeting at the high school library, or are they still talking about it?
I don't know.
Okay, because then they would already have some capacity limits in place. Okay. Chris?
Yes, thank you, Karen. Dr. Lopez, just so on the slides that you had, it showed that 56% of Reading is fully vaccinated. Is that what you had up there?
Let me put that up. I don't think it was quite that high.
I thought I saw 56
I could
because
be-
I thought it was high as well.
Maybe that has received one.
So
Oh, yeah, it is.
total population,
Okay, 56.
the individuals have received 56%. 38% is fully vaccinated. And these are only adults, obviously, because from age 20 beyond.
And we'll never actually get to 100%, no matter which scenario, 6 months from now, 5 years from now.
Exactly.
It's all, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. And so it's not, I think it's not totally, I'm sure you've all been reading about the skepticism now about the herd immunity piece, but it also has to do with obviously the number of ambient cases, active cases in the community. And when they're very low, the risk gets even lower.
Thank you.
Anne?
Just to clarify the number, and it's 56% of adults who have one dose, or 56% of the total Reading population.
56% of adults over the age of 20 have had one shot.
Thank you.
And 38%, I think it was 38%, are fully vaccinated over the age of 20. So this does not include the adolescent population. Which is not very different from the state. I think they're projecting by the end of this month, 4 out of 7 million Massachusetts residents will be vaccinated. So that's kind of, again, in that 50-ish% range.
Chris?
Sorry, just one other follow-up. So when you went onto the CVS site to see all the reservations and all that, are you saying at this point, anybody who would want to get it would be able to receive it, and then a month from now, you would still see these numbers start to trickle down? Because if there's all these open appointments now, why aren't the remaining X amount % actually getting it? You know what I mean? Like, if people watching right now wanted to get it, and you just told me that there's all these appointments at CVS and Reading that people can go to, then it's safe to say if they're not doing it now, what's going to make them want to do it a month or 2 months from now? Unless they were under the impression that there was no availability.
Right. Well, they shouldn't be under the impression that there's no availability, because there's a lot of availability. And I don't, I can't speculate on the reasons people haven't gotten it. Some people maybe just haven't got around to it. Perhaps younger adults don't feel the same urgency that older people felt a month or two ago. And then there's, what the numbers I've been hearing about, I don't know, we haven't done the survey in Reading, but the numbers I hear about is, there's up to about 30% of the population in the country. Maybe it's a lot less in Massachusetts, that really don't want to get vaccinated. It's probably a lot less in Massachusetts. So we're always going to have some number.
Anne?
Just wanted to provide some additional information about our ability to meet in person without providing access to the public. I think under the executive order, we could meet in person without members of the public physically present, but would have to provide adequate alternative means of public access to the deliberations of our body. So this would be good for the duration of the state of emergency. So that provision expires upon the lifting of the state of emergency. So it's going to be a bit of a moving target. But we're used to that now.
No, it's good. All right. Thank you. Really appreciate your update.
Thanks, Rick.
That is good news.
Pleasure to be here. Take care.
Thank you. Okay, before we jump into liaison assignments, Bob, I actually don't see you listed on here as town manager report. When did you want to speak this evening? Or where could we put you in?
I usually go as part of liaison reports.
Okay, would you like to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
I have a couple quick things. First, thanks to Representative Jones and Haggerty. You probably saw a press release today. They secured $120,000 in earmarks as part of the House budget. So those are on to the Senate. We'll see how they fare there. Quickly, $10,000 was for the Coalition of Prevention and Support, $50,000 for redesign of the Haven Street CVS parking lot to include more pedestrian-friendly features, $50,000 for pedestrian access improvements, specifically at the Market Basket entrance. And if you've seen pedestrians around there, you know why. And lastly, $10,000 for an establishment of a Reading community garden to enhance the community, currently unknown where that location might be. So thanks for both of our representatives for that news today. As Secretary, Mark has asked me to look at one thing so far that the resident emails to the board have come in. We're meeting tomorrow with our technology staff to look at alternatives and to discuss and make some changes on email communication through the website. So we've discussed with the vendor, and the only realistic option, actually Ann mentioned either today or yesterday, is to just use your own email account and send an email to the select board email address. And so not technically go quote unquote through the website anymore. It's easy enough to make that change for the select board, and we'll do that. We do want to ask other boards and committees how they feel about it, though. We don't want to just unilaterally change that if some of the boards and committees are using that. And we just don't know, so we'll have to ask. But, you folks should be all set shortly. Starting May 10th, the town is going to start flushing water mains. The water is very safe to drink, but for a day or so, you might just delay doing your laundry, and residents will be notified in advance. The next day, May 11th, a reminder that MassDOT is having a virtual meeting to discuss the Main Street Road Diet, and those details are on town website and social media. And as part of that, we were able to get National Grid to schedule some significant natural gas main replacement in the northern section of town before the final pavement goes down. So that's really good news also. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Well, I'm sorry, what was that last part about National Grid again on Main Street?
National Grid has done the appropriate paperwork to stop any pavement going down on the northern section of Main Street before they replace some gas mains up there.
Excellent. Okay, great. That'll be good. Okay. All right. That's really exciting about the earmark funds. The Reading Climate Advisory Committee had put together that submission for the community guidance, so they're pretty excited and they'll continue to work on it. All right, would anybody like to go first with liaison reports? Mark?
Thanks, Karen. Couple of reports. First, the last meeting of the coalition recognized Dr. John Daugherty for his tireless work in supporting the development and work of the coalition. As I think most of you know, he is leaving the district in June after a career spanning, I don't know, 30 plus years, I think, in town. And the coalition just recognized him for a lot of the work that he's done. And it was a very nice ceremony where they actually sent him a memento that he'll definitely remember. So that was really nice. Second thing is that at the last command meeting, the group basically decided it will be meeting less regularly going forward if all goes well. The big changes taking place, the town website, as far as COVID is concerned, is going to be updated and simplified, with a lot of the activity focusing on the public health aspects of the website and the public health area there. And the feeling has been that a lot of the activity that had been required is now less required. There seems to be a lot less activity related to local vaccination, although that does continue as they're able to do it, but it may not require meeting quite as frequently as the group was. So I think I've mentioned this before, but it was very inspiring to watch the group work together and to keep the residents safe, informed, and really navigate through uncharted waters. So, and that's it for updates.
Thank you. Who else? Chris?
I randomly happen to be watching the historic committee, and they seem to be super concerned about some summer Ave stuff. So I ended up meeting with some residents over there, and I'll make a motion towards the end of the thing during the update stage about putting something like that on the agenda. But I know it's been brought in front of the board before, the 5 to 7 years worth of stuff that's been going on over there. So I'd just like to bring that up at the end. But that's it for me because I didn't have anything. Yeah.
Marlo?
I'm good, Karen, thanks.
Okay. Anne?
No updates.
Okay, well, we've all been very busy with town meetings, so this is understandable. I just have to report that I was able to swing by the RMLD bike swap, and what a great group of volunteers from both Reading Cares and the Reading Climate Advisory Committee. And I guess the supply and demand varies every year. So this year they had a lot of bonus children's bikes left over, and they have some ideas about how to distribute them in the community, but they had a nice day and I give them great kudos. There were people picking up bikes, and I never did it when my kid was that age, but that was such a great idea. So I thank them for doing that. Okay, so, all right, so as far as the liaison assignments, I was able to look at them in the packet, and thank you everybody for doing the ranking. I think that does help do the assignments very well. So we have a couple of areas where we have a lot of ones, one being the highest priority. So, and before I get into that, just a question, Bob, about this spreadsheet, where it says down economic development, is that just a category, or is that supposed to be a new liaison? Right below community development?
Yeah, let me share the screen just so I can point at things, if you don't mind. You see that okay?
Getting better.
Yes.
Under public services, as you know, there's two parts to the department. There's community services and community development.
Mhm.
Generally speaking, the liaison assignments were the lines below that. But as you can see, occasionally some people put a ranking next to just the top of community development.
Okay.
So economic development has had, and I didn't list because there's no real pattern, one or two liaisons. for the last few years since Erin's been here. MEPC typically just follows with economic development, and honestly, there's not a lot of work to do there. So does that answer your question, Karen?
So, but we're not assigning somebody to be a liaison to economic development. That is a category. That was the question.
It is a category. You would be assigning a liaison to work on the general topic, and they would most likely work closely with Erin.
I don't believe, so correct me if I'm wrong, did we have a liaison last year? Was anybody a liaison to economic development? Like to be Erin's friend?
Yes, you had one or two. I would have to honestly look online to see who that was, though.
I think that it was me that was at least one of them.
And I think it was Mark, and I couldn't remember if it was Vanessa also.
Yeah, it may have been. At one point, I guess 2 years ago now, we had talked about creating, or the board had authorized the creation of an economic development committee. Or I don't think that's the right term, but it was something along those lines. And we made a series of presentations, and then the board kind of asked us to go back and look into them. And frankly, it hasn't been pursued since. So it may be that that's where part of that was also.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how that will work, because most of our liaisons are to groups that meet regularly versus like, what are we gonna do? Go have coffee with Erin? So that's why I was asking about this.
Well, yeah, so I think the committee actually had a structure in mind that would have had a series of members. It would have been a more traditional committee. So the board may want to talk about that at some point.
Right, and I think my recollection from that conversation was, is that duplicative of the efforts of Erin's efforts, and or what kind of input would Erin want to have into what the structure would look like?
Yeah, I can add that at the board's request, Erin is tentatively scheduled to come in your next meeting and give an economic development update. So, you might be able to ask her some questions. I would say broadly, there's, as your eyes can tell you, there's a lot going on in economic development. And I do think it would benefit the board to have one or two liaisons that could be up to date on this. Sometimes it's not enough to ask for two, but I think right now one or two would be good. And, you're not going to be so much having coffee with Erin, but you're going to be invited to a lot of the Zoom meetings that Erin is a part of with other parts of the community or other groups.
So it's interesting that you bring that up, because I have a great interest in planning, but we are not being consistent. We do not have a planning liaison. So.
Well, it depends. I guess economic development is probably what I would think planning is, but it could also be CPDC.
So economic development could be economic development / planning.
Well, CPDC is obviously a more formal committee that's involved with planning.
Correct.
And economic development is usually things that are done well in advance of when CPDC would step in. Right now, they're working on, for instance, a downtown independent group, not part of town government, which would never come to CPDC. But some of the projects, she works with developers in the early stages. So it depends kind of what you mean by planning, I guess.
So Erin is in Jean's organization, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so she's when I say planning, I mean the planning organization. No, I think it would be great to have board members up to date on various things that are happening before they get to the committees. Okay, I wanted to clarify what that was exactly. Okay. And let's see. Okay, so CPDC, 3 members have also put that as a high priority. And the Public Safety Department, we had 4 members putting that as their highest priority. And those are probably the only tricky ones. So I don't know if we want to have a little bit of discussion. I mean, seniority, just like in the Congress, seniority counts for something. So I would tend to think that existing board members that have been serving in a role for the purposes of continuity and who continue to serve as that liaison should have first dibs. But I'd love to hear what other board members think. So I'm looking at it. Oh, sorry, Carlo. My view is bad. Carlo.
Hi, thanks. I just, last year, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong, we did one liaison, and then on the more public land boards, we did a backup. That's what I recall. I know I see ones and twos, and previous to me joining the board, there were more twos. And then last year, I know we had a discussion about how much work it is for us, and that we went to more ones. And, you know, CPDC, zoning, and RMLD, some other, you know, bigger boards, there was either two or there was a second backup. Are we going to continue that model?
Other board members?
I'm just sharing what the board last approved in September. I know there was at least one change since then, but this is the format the board used.
Yeah, my recollection is that we had, I think as you said, Carla, we had larger boards that are having more meetings than we would typically have two people assigned, so that the load was a little bit easier for us and we could share that way.
Yep.
I don't remember specific to backups beyond that, though.
That's what I remember. That's why I like the format that we had last year.
Yeah.
It made sense, and in all honesty, I did not attend one ZBA meeting. I had my hands full with this board and recreation and CPDC and the bigger boards and the VASC with Karen. So I'm hoping Vanessa did, but I really don't know. So I think for those boards, we need to have a lead, or just you know, two people sharing the same responsibility, and you do rock, paper, scissors. I don't know, but I think it's good to have, if someone has an interest as a one, they're the lead, and then we can assign a person as the backup when someone can't make it or there's a conflict. Like tonight, CPDC is having a meeting, which is rare on a Tuesday. I'm guessing it's because of town meeting. Light agenda, but you know, I would have attended that. And so that's my 2 cents. I like the format from last year, and I'd like to continue it if everyone agrees.
Carla, quick question. I didn't remember when we had two people assigned that it was kind of a lead and a backup. I thought it was just two people.
I think there was some confusion. I took it as a lead and a backup. You know, I was new last year, and you know, I attended most of the CPDC meetings and recreation and the bigger boards, you know, by myself. Sometimes other members joined in. You know, I've been historic. I've been to other meetings, but that was the way I understood it. So maybe I was wrong, but only that one board from last year did not attend any. And same with conservation. I see my name on conservation, never attended conservation.
Oh, yeah. So I'm going to say that I don't remember all these assignments. Like, I didn't remember there were two on conservation, and I didn't remember there were two on the climate advisory committee. So yeah, okay. There may be like little typos. And I agree with Mark. I don't remember a lead and backup, but as long as we only have two liaisons, that means both of the liaisons can go and not trigger open meeting law violations or quorum issues. So I'm,
Yeah, most of the boards don't require two, and that's another thing.
yeah, I don't remember Vanessa being a second on the climate advisory committee, but I definitely remember Vanessa and I tag teaming on RMLD.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
Okay, and I would also say, just for Chris, so what I found is that once the committees are comfortable and understand who their liaison is, you may actually have some conversations with members and not necessarily attend meetings. I'll say recently I've had to do that with the climate advisory committee. So you could still be a liaison if they have questions and not necessarily have to attend all their meetings, because I know we're all trying to have lives. And did you have any comments?
I do, but my hand wasn't up, and I think I saw Chris's was, so I don't know if.
Okay, Chris, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, in terms of, I know seniority to me obviously makes sense, and I'm the odd man out on every single item, obviously.
There's plenty of work, don't worry.
Yes, but I think for me, I pick stuff that I think would be most beneficial for my input if it was required. You know what I mean? Like the Trails Committee, I couldn't even tell you where our trails are in this town. Whereas I'm sure somebody else might be going there like every other day. So I think a bit more of, would I be of value on CPDC as opposed to the Trails Committee? Absolutely. Same thing with economic development. So it's kind of, that's the way that I kind of laid mine out, but you know, I'm in agreement with however you guys have done it before. It's just, that's my input.
Thank you. Okay, Anne?
Thank you, Karen. So I overall like the way we had it set up last year with I'd say we had fewer assignments than the previous year, sort of concentrated on where we thought value would most be added and where our time was needed and would be well spent. I think there also was an expectation that we need not attend every meeting, and that the most important and critical aspect of the role of liaison is to establish a line of communication with the committee, particularly the chair, so that the relevant committee is aware that you can be a resource to the committee. With respect to how I prioritized my preferences for assignments, I sought really to retain the assignments I've had for the last couple of years in order to continue the communications and work that I've been doing in those areas. I feel like I have some work left unfinished in those areas and would appreciate the opportunity to continue to work on developing those relationships with staff and community members and continue the conversations that I have ongoing with them.
Mark?
Thanks, Karen. I want to reiterate one of the things that Ann said also, the notion that we're creating kind of a two-way communication and a contact with some of these groups, because we aren't going to get to all of their meetings, and may not get to any of their meetings as it turns out, but we want to make sure that there is some kind of a relationship ideally that's established, so both sides know kind of who to talk to. And I think that also went a little bit further, or maybe I'm interpreting it so you folks can give me some feedback. Initially, it was all, okay, board member, it's your responsibility. That's all there is to it. See you later. And I think there's a hope that it becomes more two-way, that we kind of introduce ourselves to the other groups and say to the other groups too, hey, if you have an issue, if you have a question, you can come to me first as the liaison, and I can communicate it to the board. I might be able to give you some feedback, whatever it is. But the liaison is not empowered by the board to be more than the liaison. That's our role. It's more of a communication function. It's not a decision-making function.
I second that.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'll go through this list and I will send out some assignments and have Bob share those with you guys, and I'll stick to what we did for the previous year with, sounds like an addition of economic development / planning. Yes, Mark?
Karen, so there were a couple things that weren't covered in two ways. Some of them that people didn't really have a strong preference, or some things that we didn't have on the list. So one of them, for example, the permanent building committee, I think there are a series of 2s and things like that. I would be happy to step up to that one if
Thank you.
if
Okay.
that would
Yep.
help on that.
Okay.
The other thing that we probably should look at also is projects that are going on in town. We had assigned, I think each of us had some projects that were taking place, could be construction project or whatever. So certainly the water tower will be one of those. If there are other activities, other projects in town that we want to
I think the park committee, the park committee
Yeah,
would be
so
added.
I'm
Yep.
just suggesting that we make
Yep.
sure that we don't let those go.
Okay, yep, added those on there. And so, and the HRAC, when will that be sunsetting? June 30th? Does anyone know? Might,
Isn't it already sunset, Ann?
The ad hoc committee
Ad hoc, sorry.
has sunsetted. I don't know actually when the HRAC sunset date is.
Okay,
And certainly we'll have to have a conversation about that. It was the ad hoc committee's recommendation that HRAC be subsumed within the new library structure, but I think that remains to be seen and probably merits further, although it was the ad hoc committee's recommendation, the library structure is within the discretion of the library now. So I think there will be additional conversation before a final decision is made on the sunsetting of HRAC.
okay. And I remember, Mark, last year as well, and Chris, so that at the end, so going by highest priorities, those are the easy ones, just assigning people based on their highest priorities. And then after that was more of a balancing, and I will say that if you get the chance to be on the Trails Committee, then you'll learn a lot about where the trails are. I found a whole bunch of great trails this year, so that was fun because I was trapped in my house because of this pandemic thing. So actually it was great, although I did not attend any of their meetings. Okay, great. So I will have that for you guys in a day or so, and I will add Park and Water Tower. And
Karen,
yep,
do
yes.
we want to have a conversation where there's a lot of ones and we can rule stuff out? Because a lot of us put on a few committees, there was like 3 or 4 ones. Maybe we can help you by hashing it out a little bit tonight, or you'd rather not do that?
If you want to give me, I saw public safety, I saw CPDC and this economic development planning. So yeah, if you want to give me some feedback right now, that's fine. I think those 3 areas.
Yeah, for me, thank you. For me, I did the ones that I was on last year, and then I put some ones just to mix it up a bit. But I'm definitely okay with what Ann talked about and Mark talked about continuity, and since they have seniority. So I just put the ones, not knowing what the other boards did. I did mine early, not knowing what other board members put, that I'm okay with retracting some of my ones to make your job easier.
Okay. And I'll tell you, I put a lot of 2s where I was flexible. Not that I didn't mind doing it, but just, yeah. So I'm pretty flexible on some things too. So, okay. Any other board members?
Question is, Chris, did you actually put a 1 under audit committee?
I don't believe so. Where is that?
Okay. Oh, there it is. He did.
Oh, so why is it, what's the problem?
Nothing. There's no problem.
No, I
wanted to make sure you understood.
That's awesome. They only meet twice a year. That's a good one.
Chris, I would be happy to chat with you about that one. If you're interested,
fantastic.
it's something that I'm happy to do, but actually, if you're interested, it's it would be interesting.
Because I picked the audit committee, that means I get an automatic 1 on something else I'm choosing. I think that's the rule Karen just came up with 5 minutes ago. I heard her say.
You get an automatic 1 on audit committee, I think.
Yeah. Great.
Everybody else step back. No, that's a great committee. Short meetings, they meet twice a year.
Yeah, there's actually a request for a meeting already. So.
Okay. All right. So we heard from the town manager. Okay. So if it's okay, we could move on to public comment. And it's 7:30. How are we doing? It's 7:54. Okay, we're a half an hour behind. That's not good. We'll make it up in outdoor dining. Caitlin, do we have anyone ready for public comment?
Yes, we do. First, I'll let James Gallagher in.
Okay, and for public comment, I'm going to continue Mark's tradition of asking that we keep individuals' statements to 2 minutes and that no disparaging comments. Welcome, James.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes. We can, and we can see you as well.
Oh, good. Perfect. Should I just start?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. So thank you for taking the time. I certainly appreciate it. So I was coming before the board to ask for an abatement for our sewer bill. Essentially, about a year ago, we had installed a new lawn. And around the time I had seen someone post online that the town had a program in place for abatements for the sewer bill for people who installed new pools because the water wasn't going down the sewer, and there was a way to track that. And they had kind of created a precedent that they would waive or abate the sewer bill for new pool installations. So I called and looked into it and see if they did the same for new lawns. And they said that they didn't, but that I could talk to you. And they said that part of it was based on how the MWRA charges Reading for water. But again, they had a precedent in place that they do it for sewer or for pool uses because they know the water's not going down the pool and they're not, or down the sewer rather, and they're not charging people for the sewer charges for new pool installations. So we had installed a new lawn. We didn't install like an irrigation system or automatic sprinklers or anything like that. It was just, you know, hand watering with sprinklers from a hose and whatnot until the lawn grew in. So what I had done and where I had gotten that figure that I had asked you guys for, that $449, is I took an average of our 2 water bills the 2 quarters previous to the lawn installation, and then also the water bill in the quarter after lawn installation, and kind of averaged that out compared to the 2 kind of really high water bills from when we were doing all the heavy watering. And that's how I came up with that $449. Historically, our water bills have always been pretty stable, pretty consistent. The water usage has been pretty consistent in the 4.5 years we've lived here. And it's just in those 2 quarters where we installed the new lawn and had to do a lot of heavy watering that the usage greatly increased. So it's hoping to get that abatement on the sewer side to kind of offset the cost because the water didn't go down the sewer. We didn't use any sewer services for that.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you coming for us and explaining.
Sure.
Okay, great.
So what would the steps be?
So during public comment, we, that's exactly that. You are able to make comment, but we are not going to debate or discuss anything at this time, but we could take up future agenda item to discuss this. And I think the town manager did have some comments. If it's okay with other board members, are we okay with the town manager giving us a little comment? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you. Just 1 or 2 board members asked me sort of the rules and regulations. And if you can you see the screen I'm sharing? Is that big enough?
Yes.
This is the DPW abatement requests, 1 time only per household, and again, abating sewer charges, as James has noted. And specifically, he's looking at filling a swimming pool the first time. So again, there is an abatement process in place for sewer. DPW parenthetically has said they just don't remember the last time they used it because it is the initial fill. So it would really be only pools that are newly built, and there's just not been a lot of those in town. But it is a policy, and you know they do have the authority to abate those. For things not on the list, such as a new lawn, what the applicant is requesting very clearly right here, owners may appeal to the Board of Selectmen, who are the Water and Sewer Commissioners. So I just wanted to lay out that background that this is an appropriate request, and it is, you know, being seen by the appropriate group. And for what it's worth, our finance folks generally agree with his comments on the amount of water used, the amount of billing, and his conclusions. You know, they're both in the same ballpark financially.
Okay, so conclusions.
I guess my only other comment, and this could be held if you put it up for a future agenda item, but just to remind you, especially that are new to the board, the town is under a consent decree from DEP to conserve water. And, you know, you should always keep that in the back of your mind when any policy discussions and decisions are made, that, you know, residents are being encouraged to conserve water, even though we're using the MWRA, not the Ipswich River. Still, nonetheless, we are under that consent decree. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, thank you, James. We appreciate you bringing this to our attention.
Thank you. Will I hear something back if it gets put on a future agenda, or how does that work?
I don't really have an answer to that. If we put it on a future agenda. Bob, any thoughts?
Well, if you did put it on a future agenda, clearly I would know, and clearly I could let him know.
Okay, we would, if I'm not mistaken, we discuss water and sewer rates in the fall. Is that correct?
You're having a hearing upcoming sometime in June.
Okay.
Set those rates. You don't have to, but they should be set approximately at the start of summer.
Okay, good to know. Okay. Yeah, so we'll try to let you know then. So you can-
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, appreciate it.
All right, have a
Thanks,
great day.
James.
Do we have anybody else lined up for public comment?
Yes, we have a few more. Next up is Mark Delaney.
Okay. All right, here he comes.
Hi, Jackie. Whoop, you're muted.
Good evening, Jackie McCarthy, 26 Beacon Street. My husband, Mark Delaney, is joining.
There he is.
Just a quick comment. We see on your agenda later tonight, you'll be discussing records access and procurement practices. Just as a reminder, we submitted some thoughts on a public records access proposal late last year. It's our view that it's critically important for residents to have access to contracts and RFPs as much as possible, so that residents and citizens know what the town is agreeing to and what services and products it is seeking. So glad to see it on the agenda and look forward to hearing more about it. And Mark.
Okay, Jackie's here to give me the hook if I go on and on and on like I usually do. So I saw a reference in the packet to the water tank project. I don't know if that was as an example of what's going to be discussed as far as updated policies possibly with respect to public records. But since I'm on that subject, I want to first of all recognize Chris Haley, who came up to our neighborhood 2 weeks after the election, visited the site, visited with neighbors. He was well aware that a majority of us were supporting Vanessa. I think that was a class act. We appreciate it. We look forward to working with him and the board members on this project and any other issues in town. Secondly, I want to commend town staff. Have spent a lot of time, have turned this project in a great direction. Town engineer in particular, I'm sure the town managers had a hand in this. I want to invite him up as well to visit with our neighborhood, see the project. They've been doing a great job. We appreciate it. I'm getting a hook over here. I don't know if I've hit the time limit, but thank you. Look forward to seeing you all face to face, hopefully soon. Keep up the great work, and we're here to help. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. I don't know about Bob, but I definitely need to go up there again. I've seen it since the snow was on the ground.
Come on up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Just two, Caitlin, or anybody else?
Nope, we got Paul Shar next.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, we have a black screen.
Okay,
Oh, we can hear you. Oh, we can see you.
and there the magic happens.
Welcome, Paul.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity. I wanted to make a comment about the public related to records access and procurement with respect to our boards and committees, and the people in Reading do a tremendous service to the town and giving up their experience and time to participate on the boards, and it helps make Reading run. And I wanted to, looking at access to the records would be the official record of what they do, which lies in the minutes, and which is a key document to recording the work that they do. And having that generated in a timely manner and made available as soon as possible is critical for transparency purposes, for education to the community, and just general engagement to the town. So what I ask the board to have a focus on this year, hopefully, would be to to look at the overall process, end to end, from the creation of these documents, to see how timely they're generated, and to see that they're made available online, ideally, as quickly as possible. And that's it. So
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Paul.
Okay, great feedback. All right. Anyone else?
That's it. We did have one more request, but she noted she was unable to make it back in time from work.
Okay, well, hopefully she will join us our next meeting. Okay. So we do not have any outdoor dining, so we do not need to discuss that, but we can move on. It is 7:50, so we can move on to get an update on the Park Ad Hoc Committee, an update as to applications.
Yeah, so you have more applications than the amount of people needed for the board. So you do have, I believe you have 10 applications currently for 9 positions. I do believe a majority of them are residents, but there is 1 or 2 businesses in there.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I think you only really need 7 applicants because 1 member comes from the select board. And as I recall, 1 is from CPDC.
Yep, that's right.
And just to be careful with words, all are residents. Some also are business people.
Okay, so we have 10 applications. We have 1 SB member, we have 1 CPDC member. So we have 10 applications for 7 positions. Oh, I'm sorry, how many positions we have?
I think
7?
that's right, Karen.
10 applications for 7 positions. Okay, so are we gonna use the VASC process then to just whittle this down? Okay, and Caitlin, can you just confirm, I know what Carl is gonna ask, so could you confirm for the board that we have 2 business applications? Is that confirmed, or how many business applications do we have?
I know for a fact we have 1, and I believe there was a second one.
I can confirm there is 2, and there may be 3 or 4 more on the way. Or I should say 1 or 2 more on the way to make it 3 or 4.
Okay. Okay, Carla, you got a question?
Yeah, thank you, in my opinion. Thanks.
Other board members? Chris?
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, I agree with Carla with that. It's got to be, only because I'm down here, I'm well aware that, and from talking with businesses, I think when I would bring it up to the public, a lot of people think that there's tons of parking down here, all of that stuff. But when you talk to the businesses, they're like, it's been like this for 25 parking ever. So there's a massive disconnect because people work all day. And then when they come down here at nighttime, tons of spots on the weekend, everything's wide open. So I definitely think that there should be between 3 and 4 businesses on there as well, because their input would definitely be valuable. And in terms of the select board member being on there, I would love to be the person that would do it. I'm not sure how that ends up getting selected, but I've been in talks with Ivrea as well because of a conflict that I did not know would actually exist, that because I own a business down here, I'm within 300 feet of the lot, I would be restricted of what I could say. So to combat that, my only option that she gave me is that I have to have an appraisal on my unit down here to be able to show that parking being available does not actually change the value of the unit that I have. You know, it'll be out of pocket, and I'm willing to do that only because, you know, I'm very passionate about getting this resolved. So as long as I get something back that you can submit to the ethics committee and whatnot, then I'd be good. But if it comes back that the value of my unit goes up $1 because of the parking around here, then I can't participate at all in anything. So that's just my input. I'm very disheartened to hear that something that I know I can make a massive difference on, other than, I mean, I'd have to participate just as as a normal resident, you know what I mean, and just give my feedback that way. But I mean, it is what it is, and I'll do everything I can to make sure this gets squared away. So thank you.
Anne, I saw your hand.
Remembering from our previous conversation about park, that will, your consideration, it may not be exactly the same for other business owners, but some of them may have similar issues where they may need to recuse themselves from certain aspects or file ethical disclosures. And this was something that we had previously discussed, but thought it was still worth including folks in town who are involved with businesses, and thought that actually ethical disclosures and going through the process isn't a bad thing too.
Mark?
Thanks, Karen. So I think, nominally the idea of having, at least 3 business owners on this group makes sense as members. I'd like to make sure that we get input, but not membership, from some of the absentee landlords who could have a big impact on what's going on here also in terms of what's taking place. Appreciate that they can't vote. I just want to make sure that we're gathering input from them because they actually represent quite a bit of the space that we're talking about. I think that the idea of the park was to make sure that we gathered enough input to be able to kind of make some decisions without kicking this down the road again, which it has been for probably decades, more or less, but to actually be able to do something with it. And my recollection of all the discussions has been that it is related to time of day, it is related to employees, there are a lot of pieces that may be able to be handled. And I just want to make sure that we are able to kind of move forward on this. So if it turns out that we can't get a good enough group of folks to give us that input, then I think it's incumbent upon us as a board to have hearings ourselves and move it ahead ourselves, and ideally this year, meaning in 2021. Thanks.
Chris?
Yeah, just a follow up to that. Like I said, IBRIA has never seen anybody actually submit to have the process done that I'm willing to do. Because since I co-own the business, I just have to ask my business partner, and it's not going to be an issue. So I don't mind getting out of pocket. You know what I mean? I don't think it's thousands of dollars, but I mean, just for me, because like I said, I want to be ready regardless, because then I assume the park committee comes up with something, then it's going to come in.
You want to be prepared. You want to be able to vote on it.
And then future stuff as well, anything dealing with yeah, definitely. So, I mean, it's no big deal for me to be able to just make that commitment, because like Mark said, just something has to be done, and I'd love to be able to provide adequate feedback. So.
I might ask, Bob, could you put the definition of our ad hoc committee up there, the way we defined it? I'm not remembering that we said that we needed to have X number of businesses on the committee, and I'm hesitant to redefine the committee at this point.
Okay, I'll do that shortly. I did want to just also add that Julie Mercier sent out a series of emails to 296 people, business owners, business managers, property owners, and residents in the downtown area, or residents that had attended previous related meetings and indicated some interest. So let me see if I can call up and share.
22 in the first packet.
Yeah, it was luckily on Julie's email that I just read, so that worked out well. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes, could be a little bigger. Thank you.
So here's specifically.
I think it's fine for board members right now to indicate, those who have indicated a preference. We're certainly not bound by, a commitment to have at least 3 or 3 to 4. This, I think what we have previously authorized gives us some flexibility. And I think we'll, I trust that VASC will work to recommend the best candidates for the select board's consideration.
I remember correctly.
My concern is just Carlo, Carlo would looking, if he doesn't get a certain number, he would look to disband this committee that we've already defined. So I hesitate. We're not going to get anywhere if we go back and we've laid it out there. We asked for all these applicants and then we start changing the goal, the target. So that's all.
Thank you. I'd like to respond to that. We're talking about downtown parking. If we're going to have a board of hypothetically 6 residents and 1 business owner, to me, that defeats the purpose. So I agree, but
That's fine, Carlo. I didn't recognize you, but so that's why Bob was kind enough to put this up, and we should all just take a look at it again. And so it sounds like board members, you tell me. What I think I'm hearing is that we want to take no action tonight. We might want to let another couple of weeks for applications to come in. It'll give us time to get the VAS reorganized and give it one more shot, because I know you don't want this to wait. If we're going to do it, we want to do it sooner rather than later. We could take one more shot at this and get an update on the applications at our next meeting. And, I guess at that point, it's go or no go. We can't keep just.
Yeah, and it sounds like we have 2 applications from residents who are also involved in downtown businesses and are expecting 1 to 2 more. So it sounds like we're going to have a good mix of applications. So I think let's proceed, and hopefully we'll have the VASC form soon, and we can engage in those interviews.
Okay. Any other board members? Okay, I'm fine with that. I'm glad to see applications are picking up. I think this is great. Thank you for running that up, Bob. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so this next item, Meadowbrook change of manager and officers. It is not a hearing. Is that correct? We just need to vote on it.
Correct.
Okay, so this might be where our secretary might have a motion.
There's also some applicants present.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, terrific. Yep, thank you.
And just to be clear, they were going to come in with 3 agenda items. 1 would have required a public hearing, which is why it was listed on your agenda as a hearing. The item that was requiring a hearing disappeared when the fire hit.
Certainly. Okay.
So Brian, perhaps you could introduce your team.
Oh, thank you, Bob. We just hopped on. Good evening, everyone. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail with offices at 599 North Avenue in Wakefield, representing Meadowbrook Golf Club. With me tonight on behalf of Meadowbrook is Trevor Bloom, who is the president of Meadowbrook, and Ronald Rice, who is the general manager and proposed manager of the all alcohol license, which is one of the reasons that we're here tonight.
Welcome.
I think as Bob was alluding to, we actually have two applications in front of your board. There were going to be 3, but unfortunately, I think you're all aware of the second fire, the tragic fire that hit Meadowbrook. So obviously, we're going to keep the location of the license in place, as has already been approved by your board. So what we're seeking tonight is 2 approvals. We're looking to update the officers and directors with your board, and subsequently the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission, which is required when that changes, and usually changes annually for Meadowbrook. So we have submitted all the required information for that, with all of the Corey reports, et cetera. And I believe you've received correspondence from your police department in that regard. And we're also seeking to have Mr. Rice appointed the manager of the all alcohol license. Ron submitted his application to your board as part of the package. He has quite the experience. He has served as general manager of the Ferncroft club manager at Oakley Country Club, and assistant general manager at the Harvard Club in Boston. So Meadowbrook is very excited to have Ron as their manager, but he obviously needs approval from your board before he can actually take that role. Ron has been tip certified in the past, and he will be recertifying as is required as he takes this position. So that's what we have. I'm happy to reference. I don't know if it's required. They're listed, but we're happy to reference for the record the directors and officers if that's required by your board.
Mark?
Thanks, Karen. Can I just ask a question? Is the reason for the change of officers and directors just that there are elections that take place and in the regular course of business? This will
Yes,
change?
so there's 9 elected officers, and there's 3 officers every year for a 3-year term that rotates. So there's going to be 3 new every year. And then there's some ad hoc members every year. So every year it does turn over.
Okay, and then as manager, Mr. Rice is not an officer or director though, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Ian?
So I don't have our liquor policy in front of me, but my recollection is that we require tip certification on day 1. So not, within a certain number of days of starting, but on day 1. So just wanted to impress upon you that it's been very important to the board.
Understood.
Thank you.
Any other comments, Bob, board members?
No, just that the applicant has been very thorough in the past. We've met with town council both on Zoom and by telephone. He's worked diligently with the ABCC, so this applicant is, highly aware of the responsibility of a liquor license, I guess I'll say. And they've been good neighbors.
Mark?
Yes, Karen. So, sorry, I just wanted to go through. One of the things that this board has made clear to all license applicants each year is our commitment to prevent underage drinking, to make sure that the tip certification was just talked about, checking IDs carefully. I read through the packet. There was a discussion of a process. I know that some establishments have equipment that they use, but I don't know that that equipment is necessarily better. But really, my focus is just to emphasize to you that this board feels it's critical to assure that compliance with the policy, making sure there's not underage drinking. I read through the discussion of intoxicated patrons and things like that. It's very important to this board that you take all efforts that are reasonable to make sure that everything is in compliance, and that we'd like to see people at the renewal of their applications, and just to reinforce that message and to make sure that things are working well.
Absolutely. One of the things that we've already done is we have more staff meetings, and there'll be daily staff meetings with the servers and stuff. So we discuss those things on a routine basis where I've been before, and we'll do that again at Meadowbrook.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Karen. Just wanted to convey my condolences with respect to the fire. I was certainly stunned, and I know everyone, and expect everyone else on the board was, to hear of the recent fire. So we wish you very well.
Thank you very much. Just want to take this opportunity too to thank the town, all the first responders. Unfortunately, we've had to use their services more than we'd like, but they've been great every time, and during, after, everything. So we really appreciate the cooperation of the town.
Well, best of luck this year and to new beginnings.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready for a motion, Karen?
I am ready for a motion.
Okay. Board members, do you want me to show the screen so you can see it? Will that be easier? I'm gonna just do that.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Everyone able to see that?
Yes.
Great. Okay, move to approve the change of manager application for an annual all alcohol club license for Meadowbrook Golf Club Corp., DBA Meadowbrook Golf Club at 292 Grove Street, Reading, Massachusetts.
Second. So any discussion, board members? Can't see you. Okay, are we ready for a vote? Anne,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Bob, I'm sorry, Carlo,
Yes.
and Karen, yes. Vote is 5-0 in the affirmative.
All right. Ready for the second motion?
Yes.
Move to approve the change of officers, director's application for an annual all alcohol club license for Meadowbrook Golf Club Corp. DBA Meadowbrook Golf Club at 292 Grove Street, Reading, Massachusetts.
Could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? Ready for the vote? Anne,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Carlo,
Yes.
Karen, yes. 5-0.
Congratulations, folks. Best
Thank
of luck.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
and I
Appreciate it.
Thank you, board members, and thank you to Bob and Caitlin for their help and guiding us through the process. Thank you very much. Very much appreciated.
Great season.
Have a nice night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good luck, Brian.
Take care, folks.
Okay, so now we have a hearing. So do we need a motion to open the hearing?
I need to read the legal notice.
Thank you.
Okay, I will put it up on the screen also. Let's see. Oh, sorry, misbehaving computer for 1 second. Try again. To the inhabitants of the town of Reading, please take notice that the Select Board of the Town of Reading will hold a public hearing on May 4th, 2021 at 8:10 p.m. remotely on Zoom to act on a new annual all alcohol license application for Haven Street PO LLC, DBA The Common District Meeting House at 136 Haven Street, Reading, Massachusetts. A copy of the proposed documents regarding this topic will be made available in the Select Board packet on the website at www.readingma.gov. All interested parties are invited to attend the hearing or may submit their comments in writing or by email prior to 6 p.m. on May 4th, 2021 to townmanager@ci.reading.ma.us by order of Robert W. LeLasher, Town Manager.
Okay, and the protocol for officially opening the meeting would be what?
I think it's open.
Or the hearing, I'm sorry. Did we just do it?
Oh, Bob, you are muted.
Sorry. Yes, you are open.
Okay.
I know there's applicants here. I don't know them, so I can't introduce them, which I apologize for, but I recognize Josh.
Good evening. If it pleases the board, if I can begin.
Yes.
Great. Good evening. I'm Attorney Josh Latham here tonight on behalf of Haven Street PO LLC. This is an application for an on-premises all alcohol pouring license for a new restaurant to be named the Common District Meeting House, to be located in the first floor commercial space of the post office building at 136 Haven Street. So after over a year of shutdowns and economic uncertainty for small business, I am pleased to be before you this evening on an application that represents optimism and growth. It's an opportunity to open a new business in the downtown. We believe the Meeting House would be an anchor business in a key location of downtown Reading. And when the town passed the Downtown Smart Growth District, it sought to create a livable, workable downtown Reading, one that fostered complementary uses between restaurants, retail, and residential. So the post office was permitted with this exact purpose in mind. With me this evening are Karen Colangelo, an owner of the proposed manager of the new restaurant, her husband, Mark Colangelo, who will be overseeing any construction and food operations, and the ownership team, which includes Paul Solomini and Hal Gill. A little bit about the team to begin. So Karen Colangelo is the proposed manager on the license. She has strong local roots. She was born in Wakefield and now lives in Stoneham. She has over 20 years of experience in hospitality in the restaurant industry. and she owned and operated Sports Grill Boston, which was a very successful restaurant right outside the Boston Garden from 2001 to 2015. She sold that business to a national group, the Glynn Restaurant Group, in 2015, and decided to open something with a more local feel. So in 2016, she opened Local 438 in Stoneham, and she continues to own and operate that restaurant today. If you haven't been there, Local 438 is a very popular sports-themed restaurant with a long community following in Stoneham. It's a family business, and Karen's husband, Mark, although he's semi-retired, is actively involved in handling physical maintenance and food operations. Every morning, Mark is going to the Boston Fish Pier or to local purveyors to buy fresh produce, meat, and fish for the restaurant. So he would also oversee the renovation and any food operations at the meeting house if you approve the license tonight. So also with me are the investment group, and that includes Paul Solomini. In addition to Karen, he's a lifelong friend, and in fact, they grew up together just a few doors down in Wakefield. He's the owner and operator of EDA, a national staffing company. He's an experienced entrepreneur, so he brings some strong business and financial expertise to the operation. And also with us is Hal Gill. He's a friend of Karen and Mark's, a co-owner of Local 438 in Stoneham, and frankly, is a Massachusetts hockey legend. Hal was born and raised in Bolton, Massachusetts, played 17 years in the NHL, and 9 of them with our Boston Bruins. He's now a radio announcer for the Nashville Predators, the NHL franchise in Tennessee. Although I'm sure he's down there, he would still say his heart and roots are always in the Boston area. He still spends much time here with his family. He still has family in the area, and he brings pretty unique business, marketing, and communication skills to the enterprise. So turning to the formal application requirements, essentially we submitted a complete application on March 31st. To run through the standards in relation to the board's review policies, the applicant is a Massachusetts limited liability company, of which Karen Colangelo is the manager who will oversee day-to-day operations. Karen, Paul, and Hal are members of the LLC as investors in the new business. None have a criminal history. All bring unique talent and experience to the table, and they have long histories with one another. The bottom line is this is not a startup business, and it's not a fly-by-night operation. Financials. The individual members are the sole source of financing for this business. The applicant will be debt-free, and we do not seek a pledge of the license. The financial documentation supporting the business has been provided, including copies of bank statements. Turning to the manager, Karen Colangelo. She'll be responsible for all compliance-related matters and the operation of the license. As noted, she has over 20 years of experience. She's currently operating and managing the liquor license at Local 438. She plans to dedicate at least 30 hours a week at the Reading location, but expecting to do much more as a front load as the business is opened and gains its legs in the local community. She is TIP, ServSafe, Choke, Crowd Management, and CPR certified, and she will oversee all hiring and training of employees. She will enforce all laws regarding service of alcohol, and she will maintain the premises in a neat, orderly, safe, and secure condition. Karen acknowledges she holds full responsibility even when she's not physically present at the restaurant. So then turning to the premises itself. The premises are located in the historic post office building at 136 Haven Street. It's a 3,930 square foot condominium unit comprised of 3,111 square feet on the ground level space and 819 square feet in the basement area. The unit also has the exclusive right to use the adjoining 808 square foot outdoor patio overlooking Haven Street. So it has a really unique opportunity for outdoor dining. The applicant has executed a 15-year lease for the space subject to securing permits and approvals. A copy of the deed and the lease were submitted in the application package. The applicant proposes to renovate the unit as a 168-seat restaurant with additional 83 feet of outdoor seating on the patio. The dining room will include a mix of booths and table seating, and there'll be a separate bar area that offers booths, table, and bar seating. The space has a dedicated entrance up the semicircular steps from Haven Street. A handicap ramp is also available from Sanborn Street to the main door. At the top, patrons can either enter the main doors to the interior dining area, or during warmer seasons, there'll be a host located outside to the left at the entry area to the outdoor patio. The patio is enclosed on all sides with only one public entry point. It is also elevated above the surrounding public areas in Haven Street and will meet all requirements of the Select Board Liquor Policy 32214 regarding outdoor service. The premises is currently a shell space. If approved, the applicant will undertake a substantial build-out, and they anticipate this would take about 7 months to complete. The finishes and decor will be an upscale but casual American restaurant incorporating a clean barn board aesthetic similar to the Black Horse Tavern in Winchester, if you've been there, or even Gibbet Hill Grill in Groton. They plan to honor the historical use of the building by incorporating the existing wall of post office boxes. You may recall them from going into the post office over the years. Well, they're still there, and they plan to use that as kind of a natural separation between the dining area and bar area. The theme will be comfortable, welcoming, offering high quality but affordable cuisine, tavern food, and daily specialty dishes. It'll be a family-friendly dining environment, and I think that's a critical takeaway from this. It's not meant to be a drinking hole. It's meant to be a dining and family place, tailoring really to the local community. So then regarding the operations, the applicant can and will abide by all state law, Reading bylaws, and all of the Select Board's liquor policies. We included a copy of the applicant's proposed liquor service policies in our application per Select Board Policy 32211. The policies demonstrate that the applicant is going to foster a business culture and a commitment to safety, outlining their expectations, protocols, and all training requirements for staff. Every employee will be required to know and acknowledge these policies in writing. Every employee will be tip certified. Any patron appearing under the age of 30 years will be required to produce identification, and the applicant plans to keep an ID card reader, which is essentially 100% accurate, on site to check any IDs that are in doubt. The premises will also maintain appropriate levels of physical security. So we'll see surveillance cameras, excuse me, in all public areas except the bathrooms, and they will also have a security alarm system. All alcohol in service will be kept behind the bar, and all inventory will be kept in a locked storage room. The applicant proposes to operate all legal hours in Reading in accordance with the bylaws and policies, but they do expect to refine that schedule and operate a shorter schedule based on once they figure things out and you know, COVID is over and they can kind of get a better sense of the pattern of how the business would operate here. Food shall be served at all times when alcohol is served, and all deliveries will be scheduled during business hours and managed so as not to disrupt neighbors or interfere with traffic or parking. Deliveries will be made through the basement level. So I've spoken a lot about all of these specific requirements that we have to meet. I'd like to speak quickly about the concept. The name Common District Meeting House evokes the history of this area. It's before town halls existed, local communities would maintain a common meeting house to gather, to discuss business, socialize, and exchange ideas. The goal of the meeting house here is to be the local establishment for residents to feel welcome, to go for a nice dinner out with family, to meet up with friends to watch a game, or to host a fundraiser or event. Local is a core element of this philosophy. The ownership team considers the opportunity to do business as a public partnership with the community they serve. Karen, and this is based on known experience, she's operating in Stoneham right now. She maintains an excellent relationship with Stoneham because they handle things the right way. They have had no service violations and they welcome spot inspections. In fact, Stoneham town officials have said they would be happy to act as a reference for Reading if required. They also plan to hire locally. While everything is upside down right now with COVID, they anticipate hiring up to 40 employees at this location on a part or full-time basis. They treat their staff like family, and it shows. They have a dedicated staff with a sense of loyalty that is really unparalleled. They have at least 4 employees that have been with them for over 20 years. 2 of those 4 are Reading residents. They believe in giving back to the community, and it matters to them. In Stoneham, they've established 2 high school scholarships for the Stoneham High School. They sponsor several youth sports teams. They plan to carry that tradition forward in Reading if they're allowed to open this business. They also plan to donate a percentage of any sales they make in Reading to Reading youth organizations. Once we can get this establishment open and they kind of get through this COVID downturn, they really do plan to be a long-term partner in the Reading community. So I've been speaking a lot. In closing, I would simply say that the Common District Meeting House would be a positive addition to the downtown. The application before you this evening would enable the opening of a new business that fits perfectly and complements the local residential and retail uses and really Reading in general. The application is exactly what the town envisioned for this premises. And this is the applicant is the best case scenario. They are experienced, they are a dedicated team who are enthusiastic about this. We hope you will vote for this application this evening. And with that, we stand ready to answer any questions of the board.
You're muted, Karen.
Board members, do we have any questions? Mark?
Folks, Josh, thank you. Great presentation. Folks, welcome. Couple of quick requests. Mark and Karen. Mark, can you move your camera just a little bit so we can meet Karen as well? We're only seeing you. So we'll turn a little bit more, and I think we'll get both of you. There you go. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Nice to meet you as well, Karen. So one question, I know, Karen, you're going to be managing in Stoneham and here in Reading. So does that mean that you'll be at some point hiring a different manager that would be responsible for liquor here in Reading? You're on mute right now.
Am I off of mute?
Yes.
Okay. No, my plan is to spend more time in Reading because we've been in Stoneham for 5 years and we've kind of
It runs itself.
runs itself basically now. But I have people that work for me when I'm not there, so they would take more responsibility in Stoneham, and I would spend more time in Reading, especially where it's new and.
Great. Thank you. No, the plan sounds great. Love the outdoor dining. Concept sounds great. So a great overview. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris?
You know, I have to ask, thank you, Karen. You know, I have to ask about the parking situation. So how many spots are there going to be for customers and how many do you have for employees currently? Do you know that?
I think it's just public parking.
So maybe, would you mind if I answered that? Because I've been dealing,
of course.
I've been dealing with Miss Julie Mercier.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So we plan to take advantage of that parking program that the town offers when it presents itself, when we're getting close to getting open. We would be looking for street parking and use of that municipal parking lot. And I also think that our busy hours of operation, there'll be less cars in the downtown area. When I go there, I'm doing some stuff inside, and when I go there 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, 8 o'clock in the evening, that Haven Street is basically empty. I don't know about the municipal lot. I've never parked there, but Haven Street is wide open at that time of the night, and I would imagine the majority of our business would be during those hours.
So there's no lunchtime stuff? It's only dinner?
We'll serve lunch, but I would, lunch.
Hoping people in the area would walk there.
Yeah, we're hoping to walk traffic. I don't think if Stoneham's any indication of how this may go, it takes a long time to build a lunch, especially a large lunch that would impact parking.
And then I think this is more of a general question. I know from looking at the financials and all that, it seems like you guys are going to be investing millions of dollars in Reading. And I'm just wondering, does the town or do we have anything in place where a new business opens up in Reading where we just advertise it at least on the town site or Facebook page or something like that to just set businesses up, on the right foot from the get-go, you know what I mean? Just something as simple as that, because clearly you're investing millions here and then the taxes and everything else that are going to come from it. I mean, I'd like to see if there was at least something that we could do, not just for you, just for any other new businesses that might be coming here, because
I have a Facebook page in our Stoneham location, and a lot of our customers in Stoneham are from Reading also.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to
I think what he's saying is that
they want to help us.
That would be, Chris, that would be fantastic if there was something like that. We'd love to get the word out, and we don't know the exact percentage of sales that we're going to donate to youth programs. I couldn't think of a better way to partner with the town than to put the money into the youth. Sports programs, we donate a lot of money and sponsor a lot of teams in Stoneham, and it's paid us back, and we've made a lot of friends and a lot of customers. And if there was some sort of mechanism that you guys have for advertising or to announce that, I mean, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, that's what I would like to see, or at least find out about. Just like I said, not just for you, there's a business that's moving in underneath me on Haven Street that I don't think anybody even has a clue that's going in there. It's some botanical store, like, so it's more of, at least from the get-go, you know, I'm not asking for like weekly things. It's mainly just, here's the first year, you know, kind of thing. So
There's a lot of nice businesses on Haven Street.
yeah, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. To piggyback on what Chris said about the parking, does the building provide any employee parking?
It does not.
Okay.
It does not.
Yeah, I actually went for a walk the other night, peeked in. I knew something was coming, and look forward to it. As Chris said, I know you're going to spend a lot of money in the build out. Just getting 4 walls and a door is quite expensive, just the kitchen equipment alone. So I'm sure the town looks forward to it. We look forward to it, and just can't wait for you guys to open. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you guys should meet Paul. This is Paul Salamini.
Hi.
I just want to.
Nice to meet everyone.
Thanks for
Glad that
spitting
you're
in
here
the
to
camera.
speak to you.
Is Hal on the call?
He might be still there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm really excited about this concept as well. It's a great, unique building. I would agree that in the evenings, Haven Street is pretty quiet. So, and I hope your build out goes quickly. And I look forward to enjoying the outdoor dining. And I think it's a great addition to the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark?
Thanks, Karen. So just to reiterate, really appreciate your including your liquor policy in the documentation. This board takes very seriously the liquor licenses that we're able to authorize, and we ask that you be very vigilant about this. Being very careful of underage drinking, being very careful of intoxicated patrons. It was spelled out nicely in your documentation. So again, really appreciate that it's there. We just want to have a relationship with you folks, and we want to make sure you understand that that's one of the highest priorities this board has as the licensing board for liquor. So we thank you for
just so the board knows that I'm married to the czar of rule following. She's right next to me.
Excellent. Excellent.
I don't have patience. I'm too old to deal with that kind of clientele.
Anne?
I just wanted to say great presentation, and I look forward to walking to dinner at your restaurant.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bob, do you have any comments to add?
Just a personal question. I understand during the pandemic, the answer is quite different, but I've seen the proposed layout of your restaurant. Will you be able to do, for instance, year-end sports banquets for local teams? Because that's been a gap in the area for quite some time.
Yeah.
We welcome that.
Yeah, we managed to do it in Stoneham and we're small.
I'd heard that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we sponsor a lot of teams. Their year-end banquets, you know, they hold their year-end banquets there. I don't think we'd be large enough to, let's say, do a youth hockey banquet
Like the whole town.
with 12 teams, but we can certainly do a banquet for 100 people, I would say, and which includes a lot of, which opens the doors to a lot of different types of banquets.
Yeah, Reading recreation and especially athletic teams have commented for years how they have to leave town at the end of their season, which is just unfortunate.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I wish you folks a lot of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there are no more questions, should we then close the public hearing, Mark?
Are there any public comments? Anyone that wanted to make a comment?
I've not had any come in.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Okay. In that case, move to close the hearing regarding a new liquor license for 136 Haven Street.
Second. Okay, are we ready for the vote? Anne?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Carlo,
Yes.
and Karen, yes. The vote is 5-0 in the affirmative. Congratulations.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Wait, we got one more vote before we do that.
Sorry, Mark.
Move to approve the new annual all alcohol restaurant license for Haven Street PO LLC DBA The Common District Meeting House at 136 Haven Street, Reading, Massachusetts.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Carlo. Okay, are we ready for the vote? Anne,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Carlo,
Yes.
and Karen, yes. The vote will be 5-0.
Now we can give you congratulations.
I feel like we're on American Idol. Thank you
Good
very much.
luck. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank
Good luck,
Bye-bye.
folks.
Good luck.
Good night.
Yeah, best wishes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Have a great evening.
If they ever showed up. if they
Madam
ever-
Chair, might we take a quick 2-minute break? Might that be possible?
I think that would be great. I was gonna ask when you would like to. Okay, it's 8:53. Can we be back at 8:57? 4 minutes? Okay, I'll see you at 8:57. Thank you.
You said that
So
2
you were
minutes
back
ago?
or you were bad? That
I
would
was
be-
back. I was back before other people. Still no arm wrestling, Carla. So.
All right, kick the cat out. Good. Okay, so
Excuse me, Karen, can I offer just advice on this to let RCTV know that we're back in session with your gavel?
okay, were you texting Phil? Oh, or were you just? I can't even remember what you used to do. So Phil, we are back. Are you ready? You have his phone number?
I think they're monitoring.
Okay, how do you know that?
I see.
Phil.
Bill's not on.
Okay.
The RCTV Studios is recording.
Okay. Well, we could keep going, or do we need to have somebody confirm?
I can check. I can check to see if it's on the YouTube live stream.
It's up, Karen.
Okay. Okay. Then let's proceed. Okay. So records access and procurement practices. Is this Laura? Are you going to do this presentation?
So myself and Allison are going to team up here. I'm going to start off with some of the basic records policy, and then Allison's going to jump in where it comes from the procurement part.
And Laura, if you want me to share your presentation, just let me know.
That would be great if you don't mind. So it's my understanding that what you're looking for is a little bit of information about what we currently do as far as public records. And then also kind of go into a little bit about the public being able to access information rather quickly. So I just wanted to let you know that the town currently does have a public records policy. That public records policy needs to be approved by the Secretary of State Records Division. And that is currently online. And I believe, Bob, if you click that link, it'll take you right to where the policy is. This was approved back in 2017. Did it pull it up? I have the information right here. So is the link not working, Bob, or?
I have the link up now. Is
Okay.
it supposed to be something else?
It should be a PDF document that says records access guidelines.
This one right here, Town of Reading Guidelines.
Yeah, but it's not showing on the screen.
We're seeing the original screen, Bob. Overview public records.
Right, and I'm asking Laura, do you want me to click on the Town of Reading Guidelines?
Yes, please.
This one?
So nothing's coming up. Can I go ahead and share my screen?
Sure.
Okay, can you see my beautiful barn picture?
Yes, beautiful. I love it.
Okay, so this is the, okay, I'm sorry, Bob, I was confused a little. I was trying to confuse you and I messed myself up.
It doesn't take much.
Okay, so this is the page that's on our website that has all the information about records that the records access officers. So as of January 1st, 2017, we had to have this information available, and it had to, this particular page had to be approved by the Secretary's Records Division. And basically it just lets you, it provides an email address, lets you know exactly who you want to contact for any particular type of records. You know, we also have on here the town of record guidelines, which is what I thought was going to come up a minute ago. And this is the guidelines that had to be approved by the records division back in 2017. Nothing has really changed since then as far as mass law is concerned. But this gives you information about how to get records, where we have them available, and what we are doing to meet the law. This is a really informative document for the public to take a look at. And again, it's on if you wanted to get to this from the beginning homepage, you just simply click on Public Records Archive. Nope, that's the wrong link. Wow, I'm doing good. Where did my...
Might have been to the right of that public records request on the home page.
Yeah. There we go. Public records request. Yep. Okay. So you can get to the guidelines. You can. We also have the information of the guide that is required by that Massachusetts records law provides. So this is also the most up-to-date record. Then I believe this was created in 2017 as well. So we meet all of these requirements that are required by the state. We go well above and beyond what's required by the state. You can click on this to be able to email to request records. We also have a form that is used by both the town and the police department. And then we also have what we refer to as eDocs. And this brings you into Laserfish web link, where all of the public records is put. Outside, I don't believe this is being used currently for procurement, but we could very easily set it up this way. One of the things that I've come across in dealing with the residents is that some of the issue of being able to find records is necessarily the not knowing how to use WebLink. Residents have requested that we do away with it, and I would really hate to see that happen because we use this on all levels of the town, as well as other agencies, other departments within the town itself is using it for reasons other than document storage. So what I'd like to propose is to take advantage of the fact that we're in the Zoom era with the pandemic, and I can do a training for the public using Zoom webinar. And we can record that training and take that recording and put it on the website for anybody that can't attend itself. I can go back to my training days and provide information about how the public can find records. Because some of the records that are requested are here. It's just that they're not necessarily, again, they have the knowledge of how to use WebLink itself. We can make that training session or the videos that we put out, like just quick 10, 15 minute videos, and break it down by subject to make it easier for the public to be able to view. Going back to the presentation. So these links provide you to the guidelines that I just showed you. And then I just also wanted to get into going into the training and doing the public training itself. So one of the things that we take pride in my office is that we have a pretty high public records transparency as far as we provide as much as possible out on the website. Again, the issue is more knowing how to get to them, and I think public training will fix that. But we also have to keep in mind that not all public records should be readily available online. And what I mean by that is all vital records, an example, is public record. We keep track of who requests the public records. And I can give you an example of why that's a benefit. But do you really want somebody printing out your birth certificate because we provided that public record on the website is something you want to ask yourself. An example of why it's beneficial to track that is a few years ago, we were contacted by the United States Post Office. They were tracking a fraud case that involved mail fraud. We were able to identify who requested somebody's birth record and created a new identity with that birth record by the fact that we were tracking who we were providing that birth record to. And the United States Post Office was able to press charges. So it's something that, we're going to want to think about when we start providing records out online. Some records are required by Mass General Law that we track who gets those records for the same purpose as the example I just gave you. So those records can't necessarily go out online because I have to know who I provided them to by law. Everything that we don't have to know, we put out on the website. And I just wanted to also touch base. One of the things that's brought up on a regular basis is the minutes. Mass law requires that the minutes are tracked by the boards and committees. In Reading, it's required by the charter that those minutes are provided to the town clerk. That's not a mass law. That's not part of open meeting law. What's required is that the boards provide them on request within 10 days of them being requested. But again, because we received them in town, because of our charter and we received them in the town clerk's office, we received them and within a day or two, they're put out on the website. Outside of election time. Election time, that time span goes a little bit longer because of time frames. But as soon as we receive them, they're published immediately. Now, there are a lot of boards and committees that are behind on providing those. That, I'm not sure what authority anybody has to try to collect that information, but there is reluctance to providing it from some of the boards. So, does somebody have a question?
Well, I was just wondering, so have they been hit with an open meeting law violation complaint? Because that's no fun either. And that's a pretty good incentive to get your meetings done. That's worked for us.
So it's not an open meeting law violation if they don't provide them to us. It's only considered a records request violation if they don't provide it within the 10 days of them, of it being requested as a public records request. So that's the difference with the mass law and the fact that it's the charter that requires them to go online, and it's the charter that requires them to come to the town clerk's office. So, it's just a matter of telling them that they need to provide them to us. Now, most boards are very good at providing them in a reasonable time. The majority of them are. It's just a few here and there that we have to kind of pressure them to provide them.
It would sort of, so are you saying they are all up to date and they're getting them approved pretty quickly? They're just not handing them over? Or do you think they're not getting them approved?
Well, it depends on the majority of them are getting them approved and handing them over immediately. It's just a few here and there. And some of them, they're behind because they don't meet. The open meeting law requires that they provide them, they approve them and provide them within a reasonable time frame. That there's no definition to that reasonable time frame necessarily. So, for the boards that don't,
I feel like we ran into that deadline.
There is a timeline. It's I believe, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's within 30 days or 3 meetings, whichever is later, unless there is good reason for not approving them before.
That's exactly right.
That is correct.
That's for them approving them. It doesn't mean that that's not them providing them to the town clerk.
Correct. Yeah, there's no provide to the town clerk requirement.
But again, we do have a pretty stringent policy of providing public records to the public. But is there any other questions or anything that I missed? Other than procurement, I'm going to turn that over to Allison.
Okay, any questions, board members? Anne, yes.
So it may have been around election time when I was hearing from residents about getting a particular set of minutes that had been approved or recordings of meetings that had happened. I wonder if there's a way to let people know. You said generally if you receive them, they go up within 1 to 2 days, with the exception of election season?
In the exception of 2020.
Okay.
Because it was 2020 was pretty much election season the entire year.
Right. I just wonder if there's a way for to provide some degree of certainty for members of the public, and while also being mindful of the administrative burden on staff of what it takes to upload everything with all the other responsibilities that you have. And maybe that's another conversation, but we had heard in public comment previously, an interest in there being in having the select board adopt a policy that would provide members of the public with clear expectations about what materials are proactively published on the town website that they can access without needing to go through the public records request process. I'm asking you a bit on the fly, and you can certainly think about it. But is there a set of parameters that you think could be administratively manageable to meet, but give the public reasonable expectation of when minutes would be published on the town's website?
So that's it. Actually, this is a pretty touchy subject with me because, as I said, as soon as we receive the minutes, they're published, within a day or two. The majority of the problem of them not going on the website is the fact that they're not provided to us. So, it's a matter of how do we get the boards to provide them to us? The easiest way to do that is, it's unreasonable in my opinion, is to provide a staff member to do those minutes versus counting on volunteers to do them. I can't see how you can request the boards, how you can state that they have to be published within 72 hours, say example, when they're not provided to us. I just went through a public records request for a school council and they haven't published minutes since 2010. And I finally got some of them, but the majority of them we'll never get because they were never provided to us in the first place. So, what do we do? That's where the complaints are coming from, is the fact that we are not provided the minutes. There are some types of public records that we have control over and that can be published, to the website immediately. There are some that I would very highly, strongly recommend that we don't put on the website, such as vital records, even building plans. Do you want somebody else to be able to print out the building plan to your home without knowing who's doing it? So, there are conversations that can be had about that. The biggest one is how can we force these boards and committees to provide us the minutes immediately? And the only thing I can think of, again, which I think is unreasonable, is to provide staff for every single board and committee to do the minutes. Bob can jump in on that one. He has his hand up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if I might, the last year is not the best example, but just to highlight some challenges. I lost track of how many times the Board of Health met. They weren't too concerned with approving minutes for several months, and I understand that. Eventually, there was a torrent of approved minutes. And, I'm okay with that, given the pandemic. However, if there was a public records request, there has to be a draft set of minutes, even if they're not polished up. That is a requirement. And my understanding was there was notes and the Board of Health did have draft minutes. So I don't think we could have reasonably required them to do any more, or it didn't matter how much staff. You know, a person in our office ended up watching a lot of the meetings on replay and polishing up and finalizing the minutes. So it did require staff. But if the board's going to think of a policy, I can probably tell you more exceptions than there are rules. There are a handful of committees that never approve minutes because they never meet again with the same people. So think of the appointment committees, FinCom appointment. There's the moderator, there's the chair of the finance committee, and this is the chair of the select board, and that membership is constantly changing and generally only meeting once a year, maybe twice a year. So I have worked it out with the moderator, who has been a consistent member and you know, happily a consistent moderator, that I will write up draft minutes, I will share them with him, and he will approve them by himself, which is not really technically the committee approving it, but it's the best we can do.
That should, because I had to explore this with the ad hoc committee, that should suffice for open meeting law compliance. The open meeting law doesn't require that a board votes to approve minutes. There can be administrative, you know, the chair approves them or whatnot. So you're good, Bob, on that front. That works.
Yeah, and we've talked to Ivrea in the past, and Laura, I don't know if she has it now because it's been busy, but Laura had very religiously tracked an enormous spreadsheet of every board and committee and every proposed meeting, because meetings theoretically are supposed to be posted through the town clerk's office.
Right.
So just imagine the select board's you know, behavior in this regard. You're posted for attending several meetings, school committee, FinCom, what have you, and the town clerk or I have no way, unless we ask you, was there a quorum? Do we need to do minutes? So there are a fair amount of meetings posted for some of the boards and committees that don't really legally happen. So, you know, she has it shown in her spreadsheet as I don't have minutes, when the real truth is there wasn't a meeting. So it's complicated to really keep this, you know, perfectly tracked, I guess I'll say. But certainly from her spreadsheet, you know, you got a real strong indication of boards and committees that just really aren't cooperating. There was at least 10 years worth of bylaw committee minutes that just disappeared. You know, and I was really surprised at that. And that was a number of years ago. We talked about it with the moderator, with town council. And, you know, it is what it is, but it certainly shouldn't have been tolerated as long as it happened. So, you know, I think the board can certainly crack down on egregious situations like that. To me, there's absolutely no excuse for having a gap in minutes of any long duration. But the board has to understand and be flexible that the meeting patterns of the boards and committees are very different from each other.
So one of the one of the reasonings behind creating that spreadsheet, and we started it, it goes back to July 1st, 2010, of all the meetings that have happened within the town. And it's current, any meeting that has been posted. And as Bob mentioned, there's a lot of meetings in that spreadsheet that didn't necessarily happen for various reasons. One of the intents was, and we did this a few years ago, is to send out to the boards the exact meetings that happened, and for the board to come back and say to me, the meeting was canceled, you know, so that we can keep that spreadsheet up to date. We don't have any minutes for that meeting. For us to be able to keep that spreadsheet up to date and know what minutes we're actually missing. If we can come to an agreement, then we can continue with that process. The problem is that who do I send it to? You know, some boards that's pretty easy because I can send it to Caitlin for you guys or Bob, but the boards change, their chairs change on a regular basis. Whoever posts those meetings changes on a regular basis, and I try really hard to keep up with it. I have another spreadsheet that has a listing of all the boards and committees and who the chair is, But again, I can only keep up with that with them notifying me. And a lot of it, out of truth, a lot of it is kept up by me just happening to hear that Joe is the chair and Jane is no longer the chair, kind of thing. I just happened to hear it on the fly, kind of thing. So again, it's communication with the boards, and who do I communicate with, and who do I send that information to, and do the boards really want that information? When it was sent out a few years ago, it was received very well by many and not so well by others. So, you know, I don't know what we need to do going forward.
Bob?
Thank you. I'm not sure how many members of the current board were on the board, but a few years ago, the select board talked about an onboarding manual and an onboarding process. And Andy did a nice job creating a manual with the thinking behind it being that the board would first create a process for itself before it started so-called regulating, you know, the boards you appoint. And that's still not a bad way to go about it. You know, a lot of the things that Laura and I are saying are not done with malfeasance at all. It's really just a matter of education. What is the expectation on the chair? What is the expectation on the board? And, you know, again, if the board wants to take charge of that, which they had previously indicated, that's one way to do it, is not so much a policy on minutes, but really a broader, this is how to be a good volunteer. You know, here's some of the things. And both Laura and the Attorney General, I believe, or at least the office in the past has come in for training sessions for chairs or members. And that again was discussed as a possible portion of an onboarding manual, so-called, for your volunteers.
So, but just real quick, Mark, one of the things that Bob may not be aware of is that I have on my to-do list in the very near future. So when a new member is appointed to a board or committee, I hand them a packet. And in that packet, it has like the open meeting law, the ethics, the conflict of interest summary, and a few things about what's being sworn in and that sort of thing. And I've decided recently that I'm going to make that packet electronic. So when they get sworn in, I'll get the email address from them and I'll email that packet to them. We can add something to that packet of the board policy, you know, of what's expected. And as Bob said, being a good volunteer, it has to happen soon because we have some new members that haven't received that packet. Like, for example, I don't think Chris Haley has gotten one. So, you know, that's just something to think about, is to add it to that packet if you would like.
Karen?
Oh, sorry, Mark, go ahead. Sorry about that.
I think that's a good idea, both in terms of creating that policy and what you were talking about, Laura. And we can probably use VASC and liaisons to help reinforce the messages also, right? So VASC may be the only time that we actually see people.
Mm-hmm.
We know we're going to see them because otherwise they're not going to be appointed or reappointed.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good spot. And then the liaisons we just talked about is another way where at least we can reinforce the message.
Mm-hmm.
I like that idea. Pam?
So I think this is all really good information. I think the genesis of this agenda item was to talk about what the select board's public records policy should be. And I think with an eye towards what public records should be proactively posted on the town website and accessible to residents without without having to go through a public records request. And I certainly take Laura's point that not all public records belong on the town's website for security reasons, for administrative burden reasons. So I think it's worth the board thinking about in consultation with Laura and staff, you know, what is the scope of public records that do belong on our website, such that it doesn't require a public records request for folks to access.
and I'd like to just add to that, that once that is put into place, then I think the biggest issue is more training of the public. I think it's important that we consider making sure that the public is aware of how to get the records once it's on the website.
I think that your offer to do a training of what we currently have would be very valuable. I would like to attend. So.
I like the training idea as well, and I like the 10-minute increments. I think that's a great idea. Other board members?
Chris has his hands up.
Oh, sorry. Was Chris Sweet first? Sorry,
Yes.
Carla. I'll get you next. Chris.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, I like the video idea also because I don't know if I'm embarrassed to say this or not, but I personally, the page that's behind the PowerPoint presentation, it took me 10 minutes back in the day for me to even find that page existed. So I am part of the public back then, and I had no clue how to get where she is right here. So I do like the idea of coming up with a video. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to help you, assist in any way, but I will gladly add whatever I can to make it, you know, the best possible for the public to know how to get where you're at now, what you're able to submit requests for, etc. Like, I don't mind helping with whatever you guys want to do, create a whole how-to video section on the website, and I'll help you till you tell me to stop. So I guess for me, the video thing, especially the onboarding manual, I did read that as well. And if it was in video form, I know it's not finalized, but same thing. Like, I'm more apt to be able to listen to that in the car 2-3 times, but I can't read while I'm driving per se. So I do like the video kind of idea for all of this, wrapping it all up, and I'll assist in whatever way you guys need.
So just as a little bit of added note, so last year we did quite a few videos for training of the election workers, which is on our website currently. And it was very beneficial to them because they were able to participate in the training. And then it was interesting that quite a few of them told me the day before the election, they actually went back and watched the videos again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, you know, it's a way of being able to access it when you're available.
Okay,
you know.
Carlo?
Thank you.
Thanks. I agree with Mark on that front with the VASC and liaisons, and we don't want to burden Laura and staff anymore. And I know the school council example was maybe not a good example, but without naming names, has there been a problem more recently? I know COVID's been a challenge, but has there been a problem that with some boards and committees that have been ongoing, or is it just random?
I think it's a little bit of both. When it comes to the school councils, it's in some cases it's education. It's a matter of being able to catch that they're not turning them in and contact them. At the schools where you have long-term principals, they get turned in on a regular basis in a timely fashion. The schools where we have principals that come and go is an issue. So, and I don't want to pick on school councils because it's not just them. It's just an example of, you know, where we have a little bit of an issue of, you know, and again, it's not just school councils, it's, you know, everybody.
Okay. So I know we still want to do procurement practices, and it is 9:30 now. I don't know how much time we're going to have to be able to take a deep dive into procurement practices as well. Laura, how much time, and Allison, how much time would you need to update the board? Oops, you're muted.
Allison. You're still muted.
No, I can go really quickly. It should be fine. Do you want me to just start and go through it?
What's that?
Would you like me to just start and go through it? I could go fairly quickly.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
So based upon the questions that I was receiving from the public and the board, I thought it would be helpful to just say a little bit about the mission. Procurement role is to go out to bid to get the best possible prices for the residents of the town. The posting requirements that we use are to eliminate favoritism, fraud, and corruption and misuse of public funds. Procurement is highly, highly, highly regulated in Massachusetts on what is required to be done and what newspapers to be placed in and what websites it has to go on to. And any residents that have ever reached out to us, we've always been very happy to oblige and give them any information. But it's not, procurement is really not, the role is not to get feedback from residents on what and how to procure it. That's already been established prior to going out to bid. Do we have the next page? I did a really quick, and this involves Laura's department as well, but I did a really quick survey of the common posting practices from some of your competing towns. And as you'll see, Reading really does extremely well on what they put out on their website and the data that you can find. The only town that I found that, or city that did a better job is Boston, but your budget or your annual revenue is about $100 million and Boston's 3.6 billion. So it's not unusual that they would have some of the information out there, such as contracts and that other information. But most of your neighboring towns have almost nothing online for procurement. Next page, please. So for procurement, I know some of the residents were looking to give more feedback, but it's that feedback really falls into the Community Planning and Development Commission or the Permanent Building Committee, Conservation, Zoning Boards. There is a number of ways for residents to participate and be notified of what's going on in the town so that they can have their feedback heard. Next page. So for Auburn Street specifically, the select board, not this board, but a prior board, had informed staff they were unwilling to pay for the construction of a temporary or permanent cell tower. We issued an RFP in December of 2019 to request responses from the cell carriers on their willingness to absorb all costs in building a temporary tower. The RFP notice was posted twice in the Daily Chronicle, in the town hall, on the public notices bulletin, within the Central Register of Combis, and you can locate it on my public notices of anything to do with your town. Next page, please. And that's it. That was quick, but you can read through it in more detail when it's not 9:30 at night. But does anyone have any questions?
I do. I have a question. So I know the residents that spoke earlier tonight sent in some feedback about, I believe, and other board members, Anna Mark, correct me, and Carlo. I felt they couldn't find carrier contracts, RFPs for carrier contracts. They felt, and I'm generalizing, they felt like the information they got back was incomplete. Does this get back to more training on how to find the records?
No. So the Auburn Street water tank RFP for cell providers, I don't they put in a public, as soon as they put in a public records request, we supplied all of the contracts that they requested and all that the town had. Unfortunately, there appears to be some confusion on them reading through the documents, so they didn't believe that they had the correct documents, but they always had the correct documents. So for example, one of the leases goes back to 2000. So they wrote repeatedly to the select board and to the newspapers stating that, you know, this is obviously an old document, but it was a document from 2000, which was the original. And if you went to page 4 or 5, I have a whole memo outlining this I could show to you. It showed that it had 4 or 5 renewals, bringing it up to 2018, and then we didn't renew it because we knew we were going to be going through this process. So there was some discrepancies within the residents reading what they actually received.
Okay.
And then going to the newspaper with that information.
Did they need to file a records request for this, or is this on the website?
There is no contracts on our website or any town website that I'm aware of other than the city of Boston.
And this is one of the examples of records that should not necessarily be out there without knowing who's getting them, is contracts.
So I believe that the residents in question did reference that you can go to the city of Boston and find these kinds of contracts there. So it's this is sort of starting to sound like a policy decision to me about what is out there and what is.
Well, I think as a resident in my current town, as a former selectman, as an employee doing procurement in many towns, I think in all honesty, anything's possible, but you also have to understand that to meet the requirement of every single contract ever going on to the town website, you're going to have to add staffing. And then you have to define, even as a contract, what's a contract? Because a lot of our procurements, it's only over $10,000 purchase, so you have to have a contract, but a signed PO is a contract.
Mhm.
So to post every single purchase made would be significant. I mean, again, anything is possible, but it would affect your staffing substantially to change the way they want to see things happen. And I don't even know that it would have alleviated the problem because, again, what they requested was supplied, but they kept stating it wasn't supplied.
Okay. Other board members, Anne?
How burdensome would it be to add to the website the RFPs that, you know, it seems that there's a lot of process for where they have to be posted. As it is, their notice has to go out in all kinds of locations to add that to the website. How administratively burdensome would that be?
So again, I think that what came into question was there's a numbering sequence that I put on the website for anything that comes in through my office. I give it a number. However, it doesn't mean that the number A will ever be used. So for example, I think in each year I've given a number to the Auburn Street water tank, but we haven't bid it yet. So when you're seeing that they're saying because there's missing numbers, therefore they're missing information regarding, I do invitation for bids, IFBs, and RFPs. I do not do, say, quotes, which is anything from $10,000 to $50,000. But the DPW would write to me and say, Allison, we're going to ask for quotes and we'd like a number assigned. So I assign that number for the quotes. So therefore it skips on the website because the procurement office isn't handling that particular quote process. So it's, again, it's not a lack of the holes they were seeing, what they thought they were seeing on the website. It's just a numbering process that I established. It doesn't mean that it's missing. It just means that it wasn't necessarily in the office. And I follow to the law everything how it has to be posted.
So I am certainly not questioning whether the practice is legal. I'm trying to understand from a policy perspective, and actually really just in an administrative burden perspective, to what extent are we posting all of our RFPs already on the website? And if we're not posting all of them, how burdensome would that be to do? Not the contracts, but the RFPs themselves.
So the RFPs now, I went back and I started to work for the town in 2016. Every RFP now is posted to the website and will be always posted to the website, but they're all there and all the IFPs are there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
You're muted, Karen, but I think you called on me.
Mark.
Thank you. So just kind of following up on what you said, Karen, originally about, is this a policy question for the board? The answer is yes. Following up on what Ann just said, I think the question is both what should be there and kind of the timing. And I think that the ask of you folks is how easy or difficult is that? What sort of burden is it? I think that we're finding that with the number of requests for information, it's got to be overwhelming in general. And we need to decide what it is that we think needs to be posted and how to have enough staff to provide all the stuff that people are requesting. If there's a way to have more available on the website so that means there are fewer other requests for information, then that might be a trade-off that makes sense. But I think we need to figure out and ask you folks to kind of come back to us with some thoughts on how can we do better. Your chart, Allison, was great in showing what different communities are doing and what things are there and what aren't. I think it is a policy decision for us to say, hey, we think we should have more or less the same. And what's the cost involved? Cost in terms of if it's people to do the work, if it's capability on the website. I don't know what the different pieces would be, but I think that's kind of what the request that came in to us were. It was both, gee, where are the RFPs and how regularly are they posted? They did ask for contracts as well. So that's the policy side of the decision. And then we got to figure out what administratively will it take to do it. And if you come back and, it's this, monstrous activity, it's going to be pretty difficult for us to handle. But I wonder if there are some trade-offs between the request for information and having more stuff available on the website.
I would agree with you 100%. If we go back to the Auburn Street, just as an example, I think where the difficulty would come in is those contracts were actually from the 90s and the beginning of the 2000s. So if you wanted to have a policy where all the contracts and information like that was on the website, you're going back a very long time in order to accommodate that record request. And again, I do anything that has to be bid out or a request for a proposal of that type of stuff, but each individual department still does purchases on their own. And if it reaches a certain threshold, then it would come to me for my approval after it goes to their manager for approval. So what I'm saying is you would either have to create more centralization of work functions, or you're training almost every single department on how to do it and then to post it. And so then you have a central contract posting where everybody uses the same functioning on so that everybody can find it quite easily. It was funny. I worked in Hamilton, and they used to file everything by the resident's last name, and I nearly lost my mind because when you sell your house and the name changes, I mean, you really have to think through how you're going to post everything so that it's found and easily accessible, and that how many employees it would touch upon versus you get the request for the contracts and you provide it. I mean, my heart goes out to Laura because I see the records request, and some of them are just, they're crazy. But and when I say they're crazy, it's from an outside institution that says, please give me every record that you have for the last 12 years. I'm not talking about the individual residents that want to be more involved with their town, and that to me is fabulous. But it just touches a lot of different areas.
Yeah, I wonder if we could ask, maybe this is a concrete way to think about it. If any contract that you have to touch, that you have to approve, what it would take to basically get that online. I'm not asking you for the answer right now. I'm thinking that this would be kind of one of the things to think through is that if I assume it's at a certain dollar level that it requires your overview of it. Maybe those are the ones that would be the ones that we should look at. What would be the burden to put those online?
So that seems logical to me. I'm trying to think how I would post them to the website.
You know, can I make a request? I think that rather than kind of figure it out here today, that's probably not our mission. But rather to kind of think about what it is that we might be able to do and what would be the best approach. And I appreciate it's not a 5-second answer. It's much more of a thought out kind of approach to it.
So may I jump in, Karen? May I? So you're muted, Karen.
You're still
Karen,
muted.
You're muted.
I'm sorry. Anne, are you all set with your question? Because your hands are still up.
I'm set.
Okay. Chris and Bob's got his hand up too.
Yeah, sorry. So real quick, it just seems like from what I'm hearing from Laura and Allison that they both have to be cloned for any of this stuff to actually matter, because it seems like stuff is going to have to get worse before it gets better. In order to provide all this stuff, they're going to need more staff to be able to do it. And then eventually, a year or two from now, everything's going to be running like a well-oiled machine. But to get it up there, it just seems like a massive investment. And I mean, that's just my take on it.
So I have something to add that would fix that.
Okay, hang on one second. Bob, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I think Mark was circling on this comment, but it's a balancing act between, how much centralization versus decentralized procurement you're doing. And just to be clear, that determination is either made by state law or the town accountant. It's not something that each department gets to decide. So, if you wanted more centralization, as an example, that's something that the town accountant should be involved in that discussion. And it may be possible for more public information to be, placed online or placed more available. But that's much more easily done when it's centralized. When the same person is doing it, they understand the format, they can be a point of contact to the public. So it's not necessarily the best solution to have, the 8 different town departments plus the school department and the light department kind of all, if you will, doing their own thing. That's it.
Laura? Thank you, Bob.
Laura?
So
this is what I did in my past life before I came to the town of Reading. Is I helped municipalities do some of the centralization of providing records. And I can tell you that the town of Reading provides more than any other municipality that I worked in. Now, mind you, that was 10 years ago, but we provide a lot of records out online. Part of what we do is to take and set up policies of the purpose behind having this available with the web link is that we can set up policies where the documents are scanned into this area and everybody provides the same information, so that it's not necessarily as centralized as it needs to be. The problem with that is, as I believe Chris said, is that I need to be cloned to have that happen. That was the original plan 10 years ago, was for us to be able to start doing some of that. But being a town clerk and being an archivist, it just doesn't work. Now this year is going to be a slow year for me, so I can get a lot more done. But what needs to happen in the very near future is we need to consider hiring an archivist. And that's what their responsibility would be, is to be able to put these records out online, and also help centralize some of the records so that we're not dealing with records disappearing. I don't like that term, disappearing, but we're not dealing with the fact that they're not being stored correctly. But that's something that needs to be considered down the road. Without an archivist and without a policy of everybody storing the documents in the same location, you're not going to be able to get everything out online, such as the contracts and the RFPs and that sort of thing. But that was our plan 10 years ago, and it hasn't happened as quickly as it should.
Okay. All right. I appreciate this update, and I know we're not going to get a solution tonight. Mark, I believe this was your agenda item. Did you have any thoughts on direction, next steps?
So I think that we've circled around it very nicely. I think the question is, what is that trade-off? I hear you loud and clear, Laura, that an archivist is kind of a person that can take on the responsibility to grab all this stuff. And I think I also heard that, and it'd be worth just confirming that we're at a pretty good level in terms of what we already have online. I think if we can just kind of, validate that's important, and then understand what it would take to get to the next level. And I think it's got to be based on this notion that it would be better to have it centralized and archived that way, as opposed to having millions and millions of information requests coming in. That there's got to be a benefit to centralizing it as opposed to just dealing with it as they come in. So if that's the case, then I think you make a strong case for, we need someone who's going to help us with this.
I do want to clarify, though, that having an archivist is not necessarily going to do away with the records request, because the majority of the records requests is something that you can never provide online. For example, voters lists. It just, emails is the biggest time-consuming records request. So that's something that we'll never be able to provide online.
Okay. Yep. All right. Okay. Bob, are you all set? Your hand is still up. I think, oh, Carlo?
Yeah, Karen, thanks. What Laura just mentioned, I wanted to ask, and all good points tonight by everybody to try to move this forward. But that's one of my concerns listening to all this, is that, Laura, can you give us any kind of gauge on the average amount of time? And I know like a voting list is different than, is there a time allotment that you could say on each individual public? Are they 10 minutes? Are they a half hour? Are they 2 hours of your time, or how?
So I can tell you that most of the records requests don't go over 2 hours, because that's the point where we can start charging. So the people that are requesting them are getting very good at being able to figure out the time that we spend. It depends. It really depends on the request itself. What's happening with the records requests is the new law went into place in 2017 for records requests. At that point, we had to start tracking the requests. What's happening is that there's companies out there that have figured out that we can do their research for them through the records request itself. And for an example, when I get a request that comes in, I can hit 3 different departments to provide all the records that they're requesting. I spend 2 hours on that request. We have other staff members that are pulling those records together. We're doing what they get paid for. And it, like when someone does a title search, instead of them doing the title search, we're doing it on the records request. That's what's happening. And I can tell you, I spend 3 days a week doing nothing but records requests. And the town clerk stuff gets put aside, or I do it after hours.
So have town clerks asked to revise what went in place in 2017, given what you just told us?
It's just now starting to come to where people are figuring this out, and town clerks are starting to really vamp up on the time that we're spending. It's not going to change anytime soon. What's happening is that a lot of towns are figuring this out, and they're hiring somebody to work in the town clerk's office to do nothing but records requests. And if we eventually get to that point, it's going to have to, something's going to have to give somewhere along the line, and putting stuff out online is not going to fix the problem.
Understood. Allison?
So I just wanted to mention also, when you're considering your policy in the future, the contracts that I was requested for, that was the first time I've ever had contracts be requested from me. So we're weighing posting all contracts to the website to one request for contracts in the 4 years that I've worked for the town of Reading. Just another consideration. I'm happy to do whatever the board votes to do.
I think some of the feedback we got was the length of time it took as well. And I think, and I know even though they may be processed within the time, like they don't get delivered right away. I had this experience myself. And so just as a customer service, some of the feedback might be that, well, I didn't know what was going on and why did I have to keep asking? And I didn't know how long it was going to take. So some of it could also be proactively telling folks what you've asked for is going to take me some time and letting them know when to expect it.
So the request for the contracts, I don't know where the request was going, because if it went to Laura's office as the RAO, she would have responded and tracked it within 10 days. I've seen her whole process. If it had come to my office, I would have responded right away. So I'm by no means blaming the resident, but what I'm saying is if they went to the website or went to any town official within that handles these, they would have received them. I mean, once I received the request, it was 2 seconds. I mean, I had them all on my computer. So I don't know if the people asking were actually asking outside of the town staff, because if it came to the town staff, it would have been delivered to them.
So the original request, if I'm not mistaken, was a verbal request during a meeting, and that's not necessarily considered a public records request. So some of this is education, but I can vouch that the law gives us 10 days to respond to any request and gives us an additional 15 days to provide it. So we have a total of 25 days to provide the record. I can tell you that 99% of the records are provided within the 10 days or sooner. It's just, there's a few here and there that take longer because of the record that they're requesting, but we provide them almost immediately.
I think it could be an educational issue. It could be like, understanding, you're making this request, understand exactly what you just said. It could be up to 25 days. Here's how much time we have to deal with it. Okay.
Which all that information is provided on our website.
Okay. And different requests get sent in different ways. So somebody may not have gone to the website and gone digging for it and may not have known. Okay.
So it's taken a while, but the staff is now used to the fact that it has to go through this process.
Okay.
And any records request that comes in outside of our norm forwards that request on to me almost immediately. So, I mean, it took a while for the staff to be trained in a new process, but everybody's very good at making sure that it goes through the records access officers.
Okay, great. That's good to hear. Okay. I thank you both for coming this evening. This was illuminating. And you know, I guess I don't know what other board members think. I'm thinking you're going to have to just let us know is in the fall when budget season comes. Have you been able to catch up? Is this still an ongoing problem? Is this something we should, you know, be planning for that should be part of the budgeting process? That's what I'm thinking. Okay. All right. Thank you. That was very helpful. Okay. So now we have meeting minutes to approve. So I believe, Caitlin, did you included multiple sets of minutes, but a couple of them just had like some addition, like some highlighted areas. Did you need us to vote on those?
Nope. So, I'm sorry. There was only one set in there that actually need you to approve. The other set that was in there had to do with park. I just wanted to remind you what you voted on for park in the exact wording. So the other, those were already finalized and done. So it's just the 420 minutes from your last meeting that need approval.
Page 37 of the packet.
Okay, no, I didn't have any changes. They were great.
I didn't receive any others.
Okay, Anne?
I didn't receive any, excuse me, I didn't send any, but I was wondering if we could, assuming there aren't any other edits, we could approve it contingent on just a little bit of information in detail about what the liaison reports were. I think it says like the board made their liaison reports, and I think we just need a little bit more information there. And I think we should probably just list that I think minutes need to include what documents were consulted in the meeting. So I think just if you could at the top of the page say like documents consulted, and then the meeting packet and the date.
Okay.
Okay, you're good, Mark?
Yes.
Chris and Carlo, you good? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of 4:20?
Move to approve the minutes of 4/20/21 as amended.
I'd be happy to second that.
Second.
Thank you, Carlo. Okay, board members, are we ready for a vote? Mark?
Yes.
Anne?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Carlo?
Yes.
Karen? Yes. Terrific. Okay, do we have some future meeting agenda topics? Chris?
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, so I mentioned earlier in the beginning about 186 Summer Ave, about how I met the residents up there and whatnot. So if we could see about putting that on to the future agenda, just going over the status of the project that's over there that's been ongoing for, I think I saw a draft of some plans from 7 years ago. So
Are you asking so that, to my recollection, is controlled by the Historic District Commission of Summer Ave. So are you asking for an update from them?
no, so they were looking for us for guidance because their hands seem to be tied that, you know, nothing's being done over there, and they're at the point where they want to consult with the state and see if they can interject into what they can do. So I'm just seeing if there's anything possible from our end that we can do. The residents are concerned mainly about the fence that's still up for an ongoing project that hasn't happened.
Exactly. No, I share that concern. Bob, do you have any thoughts about what, I'm sorry, Mark, did you have your hand up?
Did. I would listen to Bob. I'm not understanding what our role is here yet. And I guess I'm not sure it should be on the agenda until we understand that.
Understood. This is Bob, there are like permits and occupancy permits and building plans and approvals that would run through the town for this project to move forward. My understanding of this project is there was a period of time in which they were needing to get this started. Would it be appropriate for you to update us at a future meeting on what has been done? Or that's what I'm struggling with as well.
Yeah, I'm struggling because I know town council's involved and I don't know how much, first of all, I don't know how much I know. And secondly, I don't know much if I should say anything at this point. So let me ask Ivrea, is it possible to give the select board an update on the property? That's probably the fairest way I can start.
Okay.
Because you're right, there are, existing permits, lapsed permits, pandemic related extensions. It's not a simple black and white issue.
Yep. Okay. Other board members, other agenda topics?
I did have one other quick thing. So in regards to recent incidents where things, where there's cameras and whatnot that may or may not be catching things, I wonder, does the select board have a policy or a security update for what was approved previously for cameras, what the status of those projects are? And if we have like a data retention policy of, do we keep all our security footage for 30, 60, 90 days? Who has access? Maybe we can get an update from the chief or Bob in regards to that.
Bob, does that fall under the building security project?
Yeah, I was going to say, today I met with two sets of school people twice, and they requested 4 agenda items on your June 1st meeting. It's not quite that bad. 3 of them are really short. One of them is an opportunity, and by the way, the school committee wants to attend if that's possible. One of them is to provide you with a quick 10-minute update on the building security project, which has kind of been on the to-do list, but never scheduled. So that would be part of it, but specifically what Chris is asking for was something that we discussed as a draft goal a year ago and discarded for now. For the board to work with the school committee, the library trustees on a joint policy, on building security related things such as cameras. And if you recall, we discussed, it seemed sensible for the boards to work together, but understanding with the final product that you're not going to necessarily have the same identical policies. The school committee has gone on to done some work, and I can certainly get an update from John on what that policy is and provide it to you as a draft. And I can find out from both facilities and public safety if we have any policies, because quite honestly, I'm just not sure. That was the ask a year ago, is since we're doing this project, policies are a part of it. So I can update you also on June 1st, just probably in writing. It probably doesn't need to be verbal that night.
Okay, and I had one suggestion. So that was really great news about the earmark funds making it through the House, and hopefully they'll make it through the Senate. And so I was thinking that we should put an agenda item out in February. I know going through this season that sometimes staff is actually working on much larger projects. I believe there was some sort of health related funding project that planning was working on, but what I see this as a great opportunity to never miss a never miss a grant opportunity or a funding opportunity from the state, so that it would be a good idea at the beginning of February to let the select board and other boards and committees and a general announcement that, there's going to be an opportunity to put together projects up to, this year it was up to $100,000 that could potentially be earmarked and awarded to Reading, which is exactly what happened. What I'd like to do is get ahead of this and say February 1st, we remind ourselves to send out a little notice that we might have an opportunity ask for an earmark project. So, what's out there, and that way, we have it teed up and ready to go, kind of smaller scale of your space planning meeting. So it's really just put an agenda item out there for February 2022. Earmark funding planning opportunities. And at that point, somebody could reach out to our legislators and see how much we might be able to ask for, and then we can ask for projects. Carlo?
Real quick, thanks. Just to follow up on our joint meeting several weeks ago, did we, I can't remember, did we set a date, to kind of regroup? I know we went over a lot that night, and Mark, you were the lead, and, a lot of good stuff was discussed. But I just can't remember if we set any kind of, not a firm date, but, do we want to meet in 3 months, 2 months? What was do you guys remember?
I don't think we set a date, but I think it's a great point. I think we should. So I have the table that was created. And maybe what I could do, first of all, is share that with everybody. Take a look at that. And then I think it's a great idea to put it out on an agenda for, maybe, when we have kind of some openings in the summer, be a great time to take a look at it again. But I'd say not wait 3 months. I think we ought to talk about it sooner.
Yeah, I was thinking summer. That'd be, I think, whoever can come. We do a poll maybe to see if we can get the most participation. But yeah, I look forward to some of the ideas that were put forward.
Great. Okay, so that is our agenda, and we could now, do we need a motion to adjourn from, to Mark, help me with this. Thank you. It's late. Sorry, it's 10:15. We're gonna, you guys, we're gonna work on this. We're gonna get these shorter.
Famous last words. Okay, you guys able to see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Move that the board go into executive session, including staff members Barbara Lasher and Caitlin Saunders Nocella, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining and approve some contracts for the Public Employees Committee, International Association of Firefighters, AFL-CIO Local 1640, Public Works, AFS-CME Council 93 Local 1703, Reading Patrol Officers Association, Mass COP Local
Can I
1.
have a motion to dispense with reading the rest of this awesome motion?
Except for the last sentence.
Except for the last sentence.
I would second that.
Second.
Thank you. Okay.
But we have to vote on that motion now by roll call vote.
And do you need to say the last sentence?
I think first we should, I would.
Oh, vote on the motion. Right. Okay. Sorry. So Mark.
Yes.
Anne.
Yes.
Carlo.
Yes.
And Chris.
Yes.
And Karen, yes.
Further, the chair declares that an open meeting could have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the body, and the board will not reconvene in open session.
Second.
Okay, so we're going to vote on this too. Yes.
We're going to vote on the full motion now.
Okay, thank you. Okay. As I see you, Mark.
Yes.
Anne.
Yes.
Carlo.
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
And Karen.
Karen, did you vote?
Karen, yes.
Oh, sorry. I heard and
I
Karen.
believe you did. Thank you. Okay, so are we now adjourned to executive